Hi. Hello. Um, Let me change this around. Sorry, I'm in a bad headspace right now. I had to write a really kind of messed up scene uh for Infinity's Light for Tomo's character. It's her introduction, and we had to go real and we had to go dark, and that took my head to a place. I guess the biggest joke is you can play the game. Am I a sociopath or am I a writer? Because my search history and things I've had to look up of how to describe, especially for just that one scene, like the 5 things I had to look up, pretty disturbing. Mm-hmm. Uh, and not all of it made it in there. So there's some of that. And then to top it all off, I don't want to go into it and get like I think I had enough political ranting yesterday, and then news today broke. But there's a thing that's trending. It's called She's 10. You should look into it. Oh, great. That's molding, so I can pour that out. Wonderful. Uh, just look it up. It's called She's 10. And if it doesn't piss you off, then maybe maybe you should consider your interactions with me in a more careful light. Um, Maybe you should just go away. If this doesn't bother you, I question whether you experience human emotion, because this is messed up. Uh, I'm gonna. There were exercises that were redeemed throughout the week that I'm gonna do before we get started, and then once that happens, we'll just jump into it because God, I hope that reading this shit can take my mind off of that. Um, I know that the news was on Twitter, and I jump on Twitter not to get my news or anything, but sometimes I look up stuff. I'm like, huh, what's that? And I saw the thing She's 10, and I was like, good lord, what happened now? And then I read it. I just thought it would be some basic internet bullshit. Oh, it was so much worse, and I am ashamed. For the first time, really deeply ashamed. Like most of the time, I can roll my eyes and be like, God, this country's so retarded sometimes. Well, for the first time, I can officially say that I am 100% ashamed to live in this country. How fucking dare we? I've already been of the belief that we're not the greatest country in the world. But anybody that utters that nonsense is full of shit. That line doesn't even deserve to be spoken by citizens of this country at this point, as far as I'm concerned. And that's as far as I'll go into it. It was some messed up stuff, and it's really. So, yeah, I'm going to try really hard to just focus on this. There is some good news. Tomorrow, uh, Toho Animation is going to drop the trailer for season 2 of Mushoku Tensei. So I'm really looking forward to that. I just would like to have 1 week go by where I can just focus on anime and nerddom and not have to deal with the real world collapsing around me, you know? That's all I ask. Just let me be a nerd for a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to quickly get these exercises out of the way so we can get to it. Also, guys, um, my my legs hurt and my butt hurts because I went bicycling last night because I went at like 11:30, somewhere around there. I went bicycling because it's the only time I can go where There's not a lot of traffic, you know? It's safe. I can go there. Uh and I rode for almost 11, 12 miles. So the bicycle seat is not comfortable. And I am sore as hell on the back of my thighs and my butt, basically where I was sitting on the bicycle. I'm sore as hell from that. But yeah, I did 13 miles. Well, actually, no, not 13, 11 to 12. 11 to 12. Why did I go up to 13? That's so weird. But anyway, I did that. And so if I'm a little slower on my exercises, that's why. All right. So those are all the exercises I'm about to do. Ha. It just rubs me the wrong way. It's like I've got a horrible rash right now. Ow. Ow. Everything hurts. All right. So how many jumping jacks? 30 jumping jacks. Let's go. There we go. 30. The gut bouncing up and down there. That didn't look lovely. Okay. 30. Let's see. How many squats? 20. 20 squats. Okay. Okay, 20 squats, 20 crunches, 30 push-ups, 10 heel touches, and 10 seconds planks. Okay, heel touches. Oh, crap. I did more than I was supposed to. Okay, that's 20. All right. Push-ups and planks. Let's do the plank. Okay, that's the planks. Now the push-ups. Okay. 30. Okay. Baby powder, you say? Thank you, Werner. Oh boy. Not a lot to report. I finally got to work on Infinity's Light. Oh. Nothing has really changed because there's still.
Congratulations on graduating from.
Oh, thank you for the sub. Thank you for the tier 1.
Basically, just getting a participation.
Can we get
trophy.
some Nyantas in the chat? Everybody's working on Shield Hero right now. I'll let you know when we switch over. I did get some. Greg recorded his lines for Shiro. For Slime 9, the post credits. So we're gonna work on that, and then I gotta get some more people to record their lines. It's not been like anything that's like a hurry. So yeah. All right. Whew. That was the thing. All right. So, Werner, thank you so much. I'm glad. But now, guys, it's I'm going to recap what we read last week and then jump right into it. So, holy cow. Whew. Also, if you did not know, Volume 18 is coming really, really soon. Hang on one second. Amazon.com. Really? Have to. Okay. Volume 14 of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime will be on sale July 26th. So if you want to make sure you get it on that date, go ahead and pre-order it now. We got a shill for the light novels. Come on, man. Let's see. As for... let's see. 14. So... The light novel for So I'm a Spider, So What, Volume 15 comes out in November. As for Mushoku Tensei, nope, that's not Volume 15. We're on volume... Is it 18? Yes! Volume 18 will be hitting digital on the 14th of this month. I think physical is in September, if I'm not mistaken. So, if you want to get it early, and you want to get it for a cheaper price, it's only like a couple dollars cheaper, but it is still cheaper. Get it digital. Volume 18 is coming out in about 12 days. So you got that. Trying to think what other light novel series... Let me go to my library here real quick. That's it. Ari Ferretta, Volume 13. Uh, 13. Okay. Volume 13 of Ari Ferretta, August 2nd. I need to have like a list of this shit. I should make a list. It's very sad that I don't have a list. You just pre-ordered volume 18? Hell yeah, dude. So did I. We all good? Let's see. From my library. Okay, so I haven't fully caught up on Devil as a Part-Timer yet, so we're gonna look into that soon. But, okay. Let's see. Okay, of 21. 21. Okay, so. Okay. Okay, cool. So we need to find 21. If it exists. Yes! 21 is already out. Light novel volume 21 is already out. It came out in April. Okay. What about 22? No such thing. How many volumes is Devil is a Part-Timer? That's a good question. Bam. 21 volumes. So the entirety of Devil is a Part-Timer should be finished. Right? Okay. How about we check the Wikia? Bam. Okay, so usually not Wikipedia, Wiki. Yeah, the Wiki fandom usually light novel volumes. Okay, so there's a volume 0. Yeah, goes all the way to 21. Okay, so yeah, there's only 21, so that's done. Wow, did not even realize. How many volumes of this do I have? Oh, I have 12. 12 volumes. Not bad, not bad, not bad. Not bad, not bad. I'm still reading some of it. I think I'm on volume 7. And I got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so I'm still pretty far behind on Devil is a Part-Timer. Let's see. Ariferetta's volume 13 comes out soon. I haven't been keeping up with Full Metal Panic, which is sad. Let's see. Realist Hero. That. Okay. Okay, so Realist Hero, volume 17. Should have done light. There we go. Okay, light novel, Realist Hero, volume 17. What? Okay. Sorry, I really should have had these typed up in advance, just so I could rattle them off. I'll make sure that that's done soon. Are these still coming out? Wait, what? Okay. Media, light novel. Okay. How many volumes are in the light novels? And why? Oh, that's right. I'm not used to this because, okay, how many volumes of the light novels are there? 16 volumes. Wait, okay, so there's not a 17th yet. It's when it's done. Wow. I thought, okay. So there is going to be a 17th, but we don't know when it's coming out. Good to know. So, Yeah. That having been said, I think that helped me switch gears just trying to look all this stuff up. There's more stuff, but I'll look into those later and I'll have them set up on the side from now on. Apologies. But let's go ahead and get into it. I appreciate your patience. I just wanted to give people enough time to go away. All right. So last time we met Perugius at his little floating castle in the sky. There was a bit of exploring going on, and then Nanahoshi got sick. And it turns out it was a form of mana poisoning because she doesn't have any innate mana in her body, so outward mana flowing into her body from everything around her was slowly poisoning her. And it is Drine's syndrome is the particular name of the disease, and in order to cure it, Rudius has to go and take another trip to the demon continent. And that's where we left off. So here we are, Chapter 5. Here we are at Chapter 5, Return to the Demon Continent. Our plan was simple. First, Perugius would get us to the Demon Continent. We would then start our search for Kishirika and ask if she knew how to cure Drine syndrome, or, failing that, if she knew anyone who did. Really, it was simple. Or at least it would be if she was holed up in some castle somewhere like Perugius. Sadly, Kishirika tended to wander the continent, so it was down to luck if we could find her. I had no idea how long that would take. The situation wasn't all bad, at least. Perugius said he would make a teleportation circle that would take us to one of the demon continent's central hubs. Simply put, we could teleport instantly to most of the towns in the demon continent from this side. I'd been most anxious about travel time, so that worry was out of the picture at least. With any luck, we might be able to find Kishirika within the week. Teleportation circles were a bit terrifying, though. Their power let us instantaneously travel from this castle in the sky to any town in the world. That meant, as a tool of war, they could let armies bypass and... Oh, really? Bypass any terrain or defenses. Not that anyone would try to invade this fortress. Still, I could understand why it was considered forbidden magic and why Orsted and Perugius only used it in secret. No, I'm sure they're not the only ones using it. No doubt there were other spells and tools that people used in secret despite it being forbidden. Such was the way of the world. I had no qualms cheating and using such magic to speed up my search for Kishirika. We would be using Roxy's strategy when it came to the demon continent looking for me. We would visit each city individually and search them... There we go. Thoroughly before moving on. I wasn't sure how long that would take, but I guessed we'd be done in maybe a year. After all, travel would only take a day. The only issue we faced was potentially passing each other by as we moved to the next town and Kishirika rolled into the one we'd just vacated. To counter that, I would take a page from Roxy's book and put in requests at each adventurer's guild we passed to reduce the chances of that happening. It would be a Kishirika treasure hunt, so to speak. We'd pay a handsome reward to anyone who managed to find and capture the Great Demon Emperor, with the stipulation that they leave her unharmed, of course. I gathered the others, Ariel, Luke, Cliff, Elinelise, Zenoba, and Sylphie, and explained my plan to them. Sylphie had regained consciousness while I was speaking with Perugius. However, it was obvious that those treatments had taken a toll on her. She was fairly thin to begin with, but now she looked almost skeletal. I figured she needed at least 5 days to regain her strength. In order to save Nanahoshi, I would like all of you to help, I said. Ariel immediately nodded. If that's what you wish, I will gladly lend you my magical implements. She offered up one of the rings she wore. It was one of a pair, and pouring mana into one made the jewel on the other ring light up. It was a secret treasure of the Asura kingdom, used to alert the person on the other end of danger. I wasn't sure what I would use it for, but surely it would come in handy at some point, almost like a pager. Zenoba, Miss Elinelise, I would like you to come with me. I wanted the two as bodyguards. After all, Zenoba was a blessed child. If we happen to face a Hydra again, he would surely handle it. I couldn't create a battle aura, so my physical defenses were pretty weak. It was only thanks to Disturbed Magic and Mana Absorption Stone that I had high magical defense. With Zenoba in our vanguard, we'd have a chance if we faced another Hydra, of course. Are you kidding me? Hold on. Okay, there we go. Yeah. I'd be devastated by if my overconfidence led to his death, which was why I added a Linalise for support. What about me? asked Cliff. I'd like you to create a magical implement. Frankly speaking, there was no guarantee that Kishirika would know anything about this sickness, or that we would find a cure. It was possible we were just wasting time. Therefore, I thought we should approach the situation from multiple angles. Nanahoshi's illness was similar to a curse. If Cliff worked off his existing research, he might be able to make an item capable of extending her life. No, he said. I'm going with you. Cliff was quite opposed to my idea. Please take me along. I want to do something for Nanahoshi too. His research would constitute doing something for her, but he wanted to be more proactive. That was understandable. Doing the same research he always did wouldn't give the same sense of accomplishment. Cliff continued. I implore you, Rudius. I understand the feeling of wanting to go back home. Now that I thought about it, Cliff had been away from his home for quite a while. He was fairly short for his age, so he only looked about 15, but in reality he was already 19. I think he said he left the holy country of Millis about 6 or 7 years ago. Cliff's desire to go home wasn't exactly the same as Nanahoshi's, given she was from an entirely different world, but he could empathize with her on some level at least. All right, I finally said. Seriously? I was already taking a Linalise with me, and with Nanahoshi frozen in time, there was a limit to how much research Cliff could do here anyway. I didn't have to force him to stay and work while we went out looking. He could resume his research if we came up empty-handed or failed to find Kishirika altogether. We would support him in whatever way we could. Yes, Master Cliff, I'd be happy to have you along. In that case, we needed to shorten our search time in order to make the shift to researching a cure as smooth as possible, assuming our current route of inquiry failed. About 6 months to a year should be sufficient. And what about me? What should I do? Sylphie asked at last, her face pale. She had yet to recover her strength, so there was no way she could come with us. Besides, Sylphie, I want you to rest for the time being. Sure, but after that, then what? When you finish recovering... I hesitated. Finally, I said, I'd like you to return home and look after Lucy. What? Her face clouded over. I quickly explained, I might not be able to come home for the foreseeable future. I don't think it's good for a child to be away from both their parents for so long. I wasn't saying a child absolutely needed their parents for proper childhood development, but Paul and Zenith were the reason I grew up the way I did. It was better for a child if they had parents to look after them. It was fine for their mom and dad to leave for a week or two, but not to leave a child without parents for months on end. Okay, Sylphie conceded. I guess you do have a point. If you're not around, it's up to me to look after her. Sorry, I'm messing with the mic because it was in my way. My bad. Sorry. No, it's fine. I had already told her that Nanahoshi's condition wasn't her fault, but it was clear that Sylphie still wanted to help. Sylphie, you've already done more than enough. I'll take care of the rest. Trust me. I know. She nodded, even though she still looked disappointed. It wasn't like she didn't love Lucy, but Sylphie had been fending for herself since she was 10, thanks to the displacement incident. Her parents had died before they ever had a chance to reunite. Sylphie had largely survived because of luck and the people she met along the way, but she still worked hard at her job and put a lot of effort into our marriage as well. Perhaps she thought a child would be fine without their parents, or maybe it was more widespread belief in this world that a child didn't always need a mother and father watching over them. Either way, Sylphie was still only 18. People's way of thinking didn't suddenly change the moment they had kids. Instead, they matured through the years as they raised said children. The thought of having kids never even occurred to me when I was 18 in my previous life. In that respect, Sophie was doing fantastic. I do think Roxy will have some words for you if you're going to the demon continent, Sophie warned. There's none among us more familiar with that place than her. You're right about that. If I run into any trouble while I'm here, I'll be sure to consult Roxy when I get back. Roxy wasn't here. I would love to have her advice, but Perugius had no intention of letting a demon aboard. He rebuffed me when I tried asking directly. At the same time, Roxy had her career as a professor to think about. After going through all that trouble to earn her position, it would be a shame for her to be fired after a year. I did want to save Nanahoshi, but not at the cost of everything we'd built as a family. Our lives were important too. That was why I needed Sylphie and Roxy to look after everyone else and keep things running smoothly. Okay, so part of that was probably my ego talking. My words weren't exactly wisdom for the ages, but all the same, I didn't want Roxy and Sylphie walking into danger. I never wanted to witness somebody I loved die again. Not after Paul. Nowhere in this world was entirely safe, but the demon continent was far more dangerous than the magic city of Sharia. Please don't lose an arm or anything this time, okay? Sylphie's brows knitted with concern. I'll be careful. That was precisely why I was bringing Zenoba and Alinalise with me. Although if either of them were in mortal danger, I would readily sacrifice my right arm to save them. Preferably not my own life, though. Not if I could help it. Well, whatever. Things would go much better this time around, I was sure. I returned home once more to explain the situation to Roxy and the rest of my family. When I told them I wouldn't be coming home for a while, Aisha in particular looked anxious. Fortunately, going back and forth would be much easier this time. I planned to come back and see them every few days. It was more like a business trip than an extended absence. I only told them I might not be back for a while in case the unforeseen happened. There was a possibility our teleportation circle would deactivate. Then it would take us a long time to travel home. All right, I'm leaving things here to you. Okay, you be careful, Rudy. Oh, okay, you be careful, Rudy, said Roxy. I figured she would insist on coming along, but she agreed to stay behind after hearing all the details. It was a bit anticlimactic. Actually. Anyway, I would be traveling to and fro from the floating fortress, but it was important to prepare for the unexpected. You never knew what might happen. Perugius told us that even if we were unable to use the teleportation circle to return to the fortress, we could use a certain magical implement in front of one of the monuments of the 7 great powers, and he would send someone to retrieve us. It wasn't that I didn't trust him, but you never knew what could happen. Maybe Laplace would revive the second after we left. If that happened, Perugius would be too preoccupied to worry about us. With those possibilities in mind, I secured a large sum of money and items we could barter with, as well as a map of the teleportation ruins. We would be able to return here from the demon continent in 6 months as long as we had all of these precautions in place. I also tucked a number of useful items into my luggage, including some lamplight spirit scrolls. My preparations were all in order. The teleportation circle in Perugius' fortress was located below the ground level. This way, said Sivaril as she guided us to a room on the basement's 3rd floor. The door had been locked when we came exploring. The interior was unlit, but the pale glow of the circle kept the darkness from swallowing us up. Lord Perugius has newly drawn this circle. It is linked to a circle in the demon continent that has long gone unused. What do you mean by long gone unused? There are many teleportation circles in the world whose connecting circles have, for whatever reason, been destroyed, leaving them inactive. Teleportation circles only operated so long as both sides were connected. By linking this circle to one that had come decoupled, he could restore its functionality. The circle in question was probably one of many that had met such fate. Oh, such a fate. And Lord Perugius knows all of the teleportation circles out there? He is powerful and great, Sivaril answered proudly. Honestly, it would be useful to set up a bunch of new teleportation circles linking to those old ones. Granted, such magic was forbidden in the first place, and I was sure he wouldn't teach it to me. Plus, fiddling with such things for selfish reasons would only net me more enemies. And that's a terrifying thought. No, I need to be greedy. Besides, I couldn't forget that anyone. No need to be greedy. Besides, I couldn't forget that anyone could use those circles, not just me. It was always possible a fearsome monster could stumble onto one of those circles. If I created a bunch without regard for the consequences, it could lead to the destruction of an entire village. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if that happened. Lord Perugia said this circle will lead you to to a place that is close to the great demon emperor, said Siveril. Wait, so he knows where she is? Of course. Okay, that's a surprise. I'd figured he'd just send us to a big city and we'd have to do everything on our own. That said, there is a possibility his calculations are off. Yeah, that's not surprising, I muttered. The demon emperor I knew was rather unpredictable after all. Just when you thought you'd find her in one place, she would wander somewhere else. Her fiancé was the same in that regard. Oh, that's right. I forgot about Batty Gaddy. I hadn't seen him in a while. Maybe he already returned to his own territory. It seemed he had also lived a long time, so asking him about the syndrome might not be a bad idea either. All right, I said. We'll check it out. We haven't checked your destination. There is a possibility that the circle on the other end is located in a place with no exit. Please be cautious. You mean you think it's closed off? Possibly. In order to conceal its location, someone may have sealed the entrance. Well, she had a good point there. If there was no entrance to the place, no one would ever discover it. There were people out there who searched for hidden doors, but few who went around brandishing a pickaxe at walls. The only people who dug that persistently when they found some old ruins were Egyptologists. Who knows, maybe there were grave robbers and archaeologists here that go pilfering teleportation ruins and just don't know about it. I shrugged. Well, if it looks like we can't get through at all, we'll just come back here. I wish you good fortune. Siveril remained in the room as our party jumped onto the magic circle and teleported away. How many times had I teleported like this now? Once during the displacement incident, twice going to and from Begarit, and then once using magical implements to visit Perugia's castle. This excursion was jaunt number 5. I was finally getting accustomed to the sensation, which was like waking up from a dream. Whew! The place we teleported to was a dark room. The stench of mold and dust hung heavy in the air. Whatever this place was, it had long been abandoned. There was no light and no candles we could use. It really was like an old ruin. Come to think of it, I forgot to ask where exactly the circle was going to take us. Achoo! Cliff sneezed behind me. I glanced back as the other 3 stepped out of the circle. Little niece was entirely unfazed. Zenoba also strode confidently. Cliff was the only one who seemed intrigued by the teleportation process. The air here sure is stale. Let us leave this place quickly. Zenoba kick-started our search for a way out. I scanned the walls. There were no doors, stairs, or holes in the ceiling we could crawl out of. To my chagrin, studying the floor also turned up nothing. We were in a locked room. So this is what she meant by closed off. Siveril was right on the money. Hey, so, how do you figure we get out of here? I asked. Our group split up and began searching for ways out. We looked up, down, left, right, from B to A. Basically, we looked everywhere and then some. Left, right, up, down, left, right. Yeah, okay, up, down, left, right, BA, start, select. I know where you were going with this. It's not exactly the Konami code, but yeah, you get it. This is it, Elise announced after minutes of searching. She had found a wall adjacent to another room. She kicked on it and heard the echo, meaning it led somewhere. The walls were so thick that I couldn't hear anything. Guess it's no surprise that elves have superior hearing. Okay, it's punching time, Zenoba. He slammed his fist into the wall. Despite being 50 centimeters thick, it gave way. leaving a small opening. Zenoba continued to widen it, jabbing his fist through the wall with the same ease as a child toppling a sandcastle. Once it was wide enough for someone to slip through, Lily stepped through. I'll take the lead. The new opening led to another open space, also pitch black. That was expected, given the structure was made entirely of stone. But there was little else we knew about the place. We had no idea whether we were above ground or below it. Rudius, give me some light, said Elise. I followed her command and used one of the lamplight spirit scrolls. It illuminated our surroundings, revealing a square room about 10 meters across. Ugh, Cliff groaned as he glanced around. Shadows danced around a number of bleached white bones on the floor. As we were on the demon continent, it was perhaps unsurprising that the skeletons varied in shape and size, making them seem almost artificial. It appears this place was once a prison, said Elise after examining the remains. Indeed, there were rusted metal cuffs on the skeleton's hands. Cliff's expression turned sorrowful as he clasped his hands. May Lord Millis grant them salvation in death. I followed his example, placing my own hands together. Hail to Amitabha Buddha. Hail to Amitabha Buddha. See, I'm not going to be able to say the first name. Just hail to Buddha, hail to Buddha. Rest in peace. I'm afraid we will disturb you for the moment, but we will leave as soon as we can. All right, let's be off. The place was covered in bones. Just how many people had they locked up in here? I bet none of them realized that just on the other side of that wall there was a teleportation circle. Wait, but Perugius mentioned that the circle wasn't connected to anything anymore. Maybe these people were teleported here and sealed in with magic. If that was the case, whoever did it was awfully cruel. I found some stairs, said Elise. We could go up from here. The steps were in the corner of the room. From the look of it, these prisoners weren't even kept in cells, or so I thought until I approached the stairs and spotted the same old rusty hinges on the floor. Maybe there had once been wooden bars to hold these people in, but they rotted away over the millennia. At the top of the stairs was a metal hatch that opened upward. Elise carefully checked it for traps and tried to open it, but no luck. There was something heavy on top of it, locking it in place. All right, Zenoba Robo, time for you to blast it open, I declared. Master, what is this robo thing you speak of? In one of the regions I've been to, that's what they call men with bodies of steel who possess monster strength. Ha 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 ha! So that's what it means. Okay. Try and play it off. Zenoba pressed his hand against the door and began heaving. It creaked as it started to open. Sand came falling down on us. Gugh. Don't worry, I said. I'll take care of the sand. Yes, all right, master. I used my magic to block the falling sand as Zenoba continued lifting, heaving the cumbersome hatch with all his might. Soon rays of light punched through the cracks. Apparently this was the way outside. Once Zenoba had forced the lid up far enough that someone could climb through, Elise slipped past us and headed out first. It's all clear. With this assurance, we clambered after her. Outside, we found ourselves on a steep incline. The sharp slope was covered with reddish-brown dirt, with boulders strewn about as far as the eye could see. In the distance lay a forest that resembled the bones of a fish. A unique sight only found in the demon continent. I also spotted what appeared to be a great tortoise far off on the horizon. So this is the demon continent, Cliff gulped, cautiously gazing down the incline. There was no city nearby, at least not that I could see. I wondered how close we really were to Kishirika. Did we need to seek the closest city? And where in the world were we anyway? Perhaps it would be best for us to return to the fortress and ask. No, before we do that, we should search the area. Master Cliff, the demon continent is enormous and dangerous. Worse, many of the monsters here cluster together, so please be careful. Yeah, I know. Cliff's expression was entirely serious as he nodded. Oh, yeah, I know. Okay, so is that kind of it? Okay. I meant what I said about this place being perilous. Even a skilled warrior would lose his life if he wandered around thinking it was as safe as the central continent or Millis continent. There are no monsters in our vicinity. We're safe for the moment, said Elinolise. She wasn't letting her guard down. I wanted to think I hadn't either, but the last time I was here, Regard was with me. Perhaps that had softened my sense of danger, but I could at least make use of my experiences in Begarit now. Also, I should warn you that there aren't many Millis faithful here. Their way of thinking is much different from yours, so try not to start any unnecessary fights, I said. I already know. Cliff cut himself off and cleared his throat before continuing. No, you're right, I understand. Maybe I sounded a bit too condescending, but Cliff had never been anywhere with this many demon folk. Picking fights over insignificant differences of opinion would only cause problems. This wasn't like when I was traveling with Eris. I wanted to avoid conflict as much as possible. Cliff doesn't know the demon tongue, said Elinolise, so you won't have to worry. True, and Elinolise didn't know how to speak it either. She and her party had traveled this continent for nearly 2 years, but apparently they let Roxy do most of the talking, although Elinolise seemed to know some sexual terms. If Cliff heard about her daily life here, he'd probably faint, but that was because of her curse. Master! Zenoba had crested the slope and was bellowing down at me. The concept of being careful was probably entirely lost on him. Not surprising. He could fall from a cliff and come out unscathed. Do you see something? I climbed up after him. Whoa! The edge of the slope abruptly dropped off to sheer cliff. My eyes widened in surprise at the sight that lay beyond. Oh, this is amazing. So this is what cities here look like. Cliff's voice was full of wonder. This was no ordinary cliff we were standing on. It was an enormous one. A whole city sprawled below us, nestled inside a crater. In the middle were the ruins of an iron castle. Wait. So is this where I think it is? So is this where he thinks she is? I mumbled to myself sullenly. I knew this city. The crater acted as a natural protection, preventing monsters from invading. At night, the magic stones embedded in their inner walls would light up, illuminating the city. I also knew the origin of the castle. It was once the headquarters of the demon world's great emperor, Kishirika Kishirisu. The place was badly damaged in a conflict during Laplace's war. It was also known as the old Kishirika Castle. This city, Rikarisu, had left me with nothing but bad memories the last time I was there. Hey, they made it back to the very first city they ever encountered right after the teleportation incident. Remember where Regard and Eris and Rudy did their little their animal rescue discovery mission and everything, and then they got discovered by the horse guy, and Rudy almost drowned the entire fucking city to save Eris. I'm like, yeah, we're back there, baby. Yeah. All right, so 10 of everything except for push-ups. All right, you know what? I'll get that out of the way. 10 jumping jacks, 10 squats. Why not? 20 push-ups. All right, 1 second, gang. I'm gonna go pee, and I'll be right back. Oh boy. All right. It's so freaking weird. Every time I do jumping jacks, you guys see the bottom of my belly just hanging on out. Huh. All right. Whew. Man, see, the push-ups are what takes the breath out of me. All right. Just trying to get my breath back. Pour some water for the homies. Jesus Christ, I've gone through half a gallon already. Well, means I'm getting a good amount of water. I did notice it was mostly clear, but there was a lot that came out, so definitely getting my water. Cheez-Its.
Good snack time. Everybody have a snack right now. If you got a healthy snack, have it. If you don't, then, well, I'm sorry. I don't I don't really have anything else to say. Hmm. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Guys, it's important when we're doing these streams to bring snacks for yourselves. In fact, I'm going to go grab a healthy one real quick. Cheez-Its aren't exactly healthy. They're not as bad as everything else, but that doesn't mean that they're healthy. Give me an apple. No, I got you, Werner. Over across the pond, it's much later. Alrighty. Whew. Mm-hmm. Mm. Welcome back. Mm. There we go.
There we go. Thank you guys so much. About time we got back into it. Chapter 6. Search for Kishirika. Rika Risu. Why did I say Riki? Wow. Rika Risu was a city I had adventured in the last time I was in the Demon Continent, along with Regard and Eris. We were driven out of this place in the end, leaving me with a bitter taste in my mouth. Nonetheless, my experiences here hadn't been all bad. Rikarisu taught me not to overthink or worry too much about things. We made our way down the slope and circled the perimeter of the crater, heading for the city entrance. Alright. There we go. Done. Whew, that was bugging me. Two guards stood watch just as when I last came here. Back then, I made Regard wear something on his head. Hey, hold up. Cliff stopped short and looked at me. There are guards here. We really gonna be okay? We'll be fine. Towns of the Demon Continent never really turn anyone away. Okay, but these guys feel pretty intimidating. He was right about that, at least. These guards were clad in black armor with helmets that completely hid their faces. The armor looked rather sinister, with sharp points on it. The soldiers here hadn't worn such equipment during my last visit. Maybe they'd had a wardrobe change since then. Halt! They said when we tried to slip past them. Yes, what is it? I responded in demon tongue. It's about that woman you have with you. They eyed Elinalise. Cliff took a step forward as if to shield her, but Elinalise was unfazed. What are they saying? Well? Asked one of the guards, conferring with his partner. They produced a sheet of paper and glanced between it and Elinalise. They sneaked a peek at... I sneaked a peek. It depicted a woman of bewitchingly beautiful as a succubus. She was tall, with voluptuous breasts and wavy hair. It was in black and white, but admittedly, Elinalise did look a bit smaller. Still, their breast size was totally different. It's not her. Yeah, she doesn't match. The guards put the paper away. Sorry to keep you. Go on, then. Is something the matter? I asked. Nothing that concerns you. Their rejection was blunt enough that we quietly went on our way. Seems like they're looking for someone, said Elinalise. Apparently so. Had some criminal taken refuge in this town? Well, it surely had nothing to do with us, but we had to be careful all the same, lest we run into a serial killer in the alley while they were searching for Kishirika. Well, Elinalise continued, changing the subject, what should we do first? Let's get some money. We'll head to the Adventurers Guild first. All right. And so we did. Wow, this place is incredible. The open market near the entrance was enough to take Cliff's breath away. It was no less busy and bustling than I remembered. There were adventurers of all races here, many of them riding lizard beasts. But despite these differences, they carried on the same way as people in Sharia. The merchants squabbled with adventurers, townspeople milled about, pursuing stores with great interest, and beggars pleaded with shop owners for charity and got a kick for their troubles. It was a sight you could see anywhere. Cliff should have been used to it, but the different demon races had seized his attention. There was one thing that caught my notice. Soldiers in black armor were stationed around the city. Each time they caught a glimpse of Elinalise, they pulled out that sheet of paper to check. Must have been easy to tell she wasn't the one they were looking for, even from a distance, because they never actually approached us. Master Cliff, it seems your wife is just as popular over here, I teased. Yeah. Is this going to be a problem? Assuming Miss Elinalise didn't do anything to get herself in trouble when she was last here, I'm sure we'll be fine. I shot her a look. Elinalise shrugged. I haven't done anything wrong. She refused to meet my gaze. Maybe she hadn't done anything wrong, but she had done something dirty. The Adventurers Guild was just the same as I remembered. The weather hadn't been terribly kind to it, but it had been dilapidated to begin with. When we headed inside, we instantly drew everyone's attention. How nostalgic. The last time I was here, we put on a little show and had everyone busting a gut. The people warmed up to Regard rather quickly after that. It was all for naught in the end, though. The other occupants quickly lost interest in us and turned away. A party with an elf and a bunch of humans was rare, to be sure, but it wasn't enough to keep people's attention for long. We headed for the receptionist and exchanged a number of Renoan gold coins for some of the demon continent's currency. We received what was nearly 100 green ore coins in return and tossed them into our money pouches, without bothering to check the amount. In the past, counting out each coin had been a daily endeavor. Things sure had changed. Nah, all that's changed is that I've got more money now. After that, we put in a request with the guild to have people search for Kishirika. She looks like a young girl with purple hair and leather clothing. She also has a maniacal laugh you can't miss, and she goes around calling herself Demon World's greatest emperor. Given the nature of our request, it was a low-ranked mission, but I added a handsome reward to it just the same. As I watched the receptionist tack it to the bulletin board, another flyer in the corner caught my eye. The search and rescue for Fatoa region survivors. The search party in Millis had disbanded, but the mission was still up. The contact information was also the same, referring people to Paul of the holy country of Millis. If anyone did turn up and make the trek all the way to Millis, they would be pretty devastated to find no one there to receive them. I had the receptionist change the contact information, instead directed people to Alphonse at the refugee camp. I assumed he was still accepting survivors. I could have written my address instead, but we didn't have the means or energy to take care of any strangers that turned up. All right, we're finished here. What next? Cliff asked. I wondered the same. Surely we could do something ourselves. We could stay here for a week and gather information. I could also hire some people to help canvass the area thoroughly. Or our request with the guild was ultimately insurance, in case we couldn't find her ourselves. Let's begin by gathering information, I said. As I glanced around, one man started making his way toward me. He had the head of a horse. Oh, it's you. I couldn't forget you if I tried. This was the man who'd led us into a trap. It was his fault we were driven out of Rikarisu. Well, okay, it would be an exaggeration to say that. We also broke a bunch of rules ourselves. Hey, Nokopara called out just as cheerfully as I remembered him from our first encounter. This guy made it his business to greet newbies on the daily, didn't he? When I realized it was Elise he was addressing. It's been a while, eh? You and Roxy already split up? Elise stared quizzically for a moment until realization dawned on her. She smacked her fist. Ah, you're the guy who used to be at a party with Roxy a long time ago. What? He was once a member of Roxy's adventure party? What the hell? Elise turned to me. Rudius, please interpret for me. This guy is he's Roxy's acquaintance. At her encouragement, I approached the man who had tried to make a meal out of us 8 years ago. So he used to be in Roxy's party a long time ago. Does that mean he tried to do the same thing to her? She never said anything about that, though. Hey, name's Nokoporo. Can he understand what I'm saying? Apparently he didn't remember me. Not that I could blame him. My appearance had changed drastically in the 8 years since our last meeting. Nokoporo had also not really aged at all from what I could see. Truthfully, I had no idea how to gauge a horse's age. In fact, he had trouble telling humans apart because of our race, and that was why he didn't recognize me. Yeah, Mr. Nokoporo, I can speak the demon tongue, I said. Rudius, this guy knows a lot about this city, Elinius cut in. Maybe you can get him to help us. Yes, I knew well how good his information-gathering skills were, as well as how persistent he was. He kept a close eye on people. His ability to collect intel was invaluable, too. That was how he almost caught us in his web the last time. He might even hold a grudge over how things played out back then. Instead of dredging up the past and making an enemy out of him, it was probably better to conceal my true identity and make use of him. Quagmire, I said. Pleasure to make your acquaintance. Yeah, Quagmire, huh? He paused. Wait, have I met you somewhere before? No, don't be absurd. If Eris were here with me, I doubt she'd be able to forgive him for what happened, but the time was a luxury I didn't have, and I wasn't about to waste it dredging up old conflicts. After all, Nokopara hadn't known Regard was a spurred back then, and we were the ones who let our guards down. It was water under the bridge. Nokopara had even shit himself in public last time, so we'd gotten some justice out of it. Hang on a second, guys. Posture check. Okay, I will. Oh, okay. I did close the door. Just okay. Posture check, you say? Okay. Consider my posture checked, but I still do have to lean close to the mic when I'm reading. We're looking for someone. Perhaps you could help us? He stared at me for a moment before asking. How much are you paying? That got under my skin. The first thing he brought up was money. No, hold on. It's only natural for someone to ask about payment when you want them to work for you. 2 green ore coins, and if you actually find her, we'll give you 2 more on top of that. 4 coins? He squeaked. Are you serious? Maybe I offered him a bit too much. It's been a while, so I completely forgot the value of money here. Oh well. That's how pressed for time we are. But I'll warn you against deceiving us simply because you know we have money. Hey, come on now. I never scam a friend of Roxy's. In fact, I'll be happy to take half of what you offered. He chuckled, wiping his hand over his nose. After we gave Nokopara all the information he needed to find Kishirika, he told us he'd contact us again in half a day, disappearing into the tumult of the city streets. You did a good job of holding it in, Elenius commented after we saw him off. Holding what in? Well, it did just occur to me. He's the man who set you up before, isn't he? My eyes widened. I'm surprised you know about that. Oh, you know, a little bird told me when I was here last. They said Nokopara almost got himself killed after messing with Dead End. I don't think Roxy knows about it, though. I couldn't believe Elenius knew. Well, maybe it would be more surprising if she didn't. A Spurd being driven from the city was pretty big news. It was mostly an unfortunate accident, I said. It was partly my fault for trying to take the easy way out. True, people like Nokopara, who used others for their own end, gave me the creeps, but I was no saint either. I had no business judging others. If Nokopara didn't recognize me, that was fine. I don't plan on getting revenge or anything, although I won't be so forgiving if he tries to double-cross us again. They say if you touch Buddha's face 3 times, he'll lose his patience. Sadly for Nokopara, I'm no Buddha. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, and there won't be a next time. By the way, what was all that about him being Roxy's former party member? Oh, that? Hearing about their connection left me conflicted. I didn't have the best opinion of Nokopara, but knowing he'd spent time with Roxy before I knew her made me a little jealous. Ah, well, who knows? Maybe he was a decent guy when he was a kid. After all, no matter how good someone was as a child, there was no guarantee they'd grow into a good adult. There was a lot left on our plate while we waited for Nokopara. First, we had to find a place to stay. A great number of inns here were marketed to the adventurers, from beginners to those of especially high rank. We picked one of the latter to stay in. For one thing, the more luxurious inns were safer. Besides, the exchange rate meant that even the most expensive luxuries were like pennies to me. This sure brings back memories. As we were searching for a place to stay, we passed by Wolf's Claw Inn, where I'd stayed last time. 3 young and likely low-ranking adventurers emerged as we went by, chatting amongst themselves. It was a little late in the day to be picking up new quests from the guild, so maybe they were going out shopping. I thought of the other rookie party that stayed in the same inn with us way back then. I wondered how Kurt and the others were doing now. A mistake I'd made had led to one of their deaths, but I hoped the others were still doing well. It's been 8 years. Who knows if they're still alive? If they were, and I happen to run into them, though, it'd be nice to kick back and talk about old times. Hey, there's an idea. Maybe I could see if I can't get some help from P-Hunter, too. If memory served, the names were Jalil and Viskel. They were small-time thugs. This time I wouldn't be asking them to help locate a pet. But then again, Kishirika was kind of like an animal. Who knows, maybe they could find her. I think I'd like to stop by a certain shop. I know the people who run the place pretty well. I would expect no less from you, Master. You are certainly well connected. I wouldn't say that. These are about the only people I know. I led the party to P. Hunter's pet shop. I had a general sense of where it was, though the memories had faded a bit. Fortunately, I had walked these same streets so many times when I was younger, and there were still landmarks I remembered along the way. But the shop looked completely different when I arrived at our destination. The pet shop was now a butcher shop selling processed meat. Someone covered in what resembled rat fur was manning the place, so I approached him. "Welcome. Excuse me, but I thought there used to be a pet shop here. Do you know what happened to it?" "Ah, you mean Jalil? He messed up trying to train a beast 2 years ago and died." "Seriously? He died? What about Viskel?" "Her? She left this place a year ago. Said there wasn't any work here for her with Jalil gone." "So she's not here either." I couldn't believe Jalil had really died. I knew the Demon Continent was a harsh place, but I was actually a bit sad to hear he was gone. Although he had also betrayed Regard in the end, we had worked together and were on good terms there for a while. "Viskel passed this store over to me when she left," the butcher explained. "You a friend of theirs?" "Yeah, I guess you could say that." "Okay, in that case, I'll give you a discount." I inquired about Kishirika and bought some great tortoise meat from him as thanks. Unsurprisingly, it tasted terrible, absolutely terrible. We spent the rest of the day trying to gather intel, which was a very slow process. I was the only one in the group who could speak demon god tongue, so I had to do all the asking around. Maybe I really should have pushed the matter and insisted Roxy come with us. No, in reality, an additional interlocutor wouldn't have sped things up that much. All I could do now was count on Nokopara. At least he was an expert in the field. I had all but given up hope of finding any leads myself, and then she looks like a little girl with purple hair and leather clothes. She also has a maniacal laugh that you can't miss and goes around calling herself Demon World's greatest emperor. You seen anyone like that? "Ah, that girl? Yeah, I've seen her. Not recently, though. I think it was about a year ago." I'd gotten so used to negative responses that this answer was unexpected. Highly unexpected, in fact. Perhaps our first venture to the Demon Continent would be a success after all. "We hit the bullseye," Cliff declared in excitement, as though we had already found her. Lily shook her head. "Yes, but they said they hadn't seen her recently." Sadly, she was right. They mentioned seeing her, but that was a year ago, and to make matters worse, no one had seen her in the last 6 months. Perhaps she wasn't even in this city anymore. Maybe we should have asked where she headed next. Rikarisu was located to the northeastern tip of the Demon Continent. If she was going to another village, she would have to either go south or west. There were mountains to the southwest, so I didn't think she would go there. Yeah, but this is Kishirika we're talking about. Not that I knew her well, but she didn't seem the type to use normal highways. If I was right about that, there was no telling which direction she headed off in. For now, let's wait and hear Nokopara's report. I somehow doubted he'd got anything of note in a mere half day's time, though. In any case, we made our way back to the Adventurers Guild. We planned to grab table and eat something, but Nokopara came wandering over before we could fill our stomachs. "Hey, sorry for the wait." He had that same upbeat expression on his face. "As you might expect, I wasn't able to find the little lady, but I did get my hands on some info. Let's hear it." For the most part, what he told us matched what we'd found out. There was only so much he could ferret out in half a day, after all, but he'd managed to put together a dossier of where she was spotted and most often, and when she was last seen. That was pretty impressive for the short notice he had. He probably gathered info regularly, or maybe he simply had real good connections. Either way, that meant he just had to dig out a bit more info by poking around before he could sell his knowledge. Geese seemed like he'd be pretty talented at that sort of thing, too. "Also, about your demon emperor, it looks like some demon king is searching for her, too." "Demon king?" I raised my eyebrow. "Yeah, about a year ago, the demon king from a neighboring region came all the way here for some reason." Said demon king was the current resident of old Kishirika Castle in the middle of Rikarisu. Those black armored guards scattered about the city were supposedly the private soldiers, knights, and elite bodyguards, whatever you wanted to call them, of this demon king. "Does their name happen to be Batty Gaddy?" I asked. "Nah, it's not Lord Batty. It's his older sister, Lady Atofe. A terrifying demon king." "Huh. So Batty has a sister? I wondered if she also had 6 arms, was super ripped, and looked like a black Amazon. Terrifying, you say? He nodded. Yeah, she survived Laplas's war by dint of being an aggressive demon king who solved every problem by the use of force. If you do anything she doesn't like, she'll immediately take your head off your shoulders. It was hard to picture that, considering how good-natured Batty Gaddy was, but if what he claimed was true, it was probably best not to approach her. Although if she was related to Batty Gaddy, she might also be immortal. In other words, maybe she'd been alive around 7,000 years ago and might know a cure for Drine syndrome. Seeking an audience to ask her about it might not be a bad idea, though. I had no idea if she had agreed to meet with us or not. While we're on that subject, has Batty Gaddy returned? I asked. He hasn't, but hey, he is still a demon king. You should be using a proper title when you refer to him. Oh, my apologies. So Batty Gaddy had yet to return. Just where did he wander off to? Then again, he wasn't around 8 years ago either. Maybe gallivanting to and fro was some kind of hobby for him. After speaking to Nokopara, I updated the rest on what I'd learned. Zenoba pressed a hand to his chin and said, Still, even if Lady Atofe is looking for Kishirika, the picture they had looked nothing like your description. He had a point. The Kishirika I remembered looked nothing like the woman they were searching for. The one I knew resembled a little girl. In fact, it had never occurred to me that the picture those guards was supposed to be Kishirika. Oh, the picture those guards had was supposed to be Kishirika. There was some resemblance, though. Maybe that was what Kishirika looked like as an adult. Perhaps she had matured in the years since I saw her. Nah, that can't be. The people around town described her as a little girl, too. In that case, maybe the Demon King had no idea that Kishirika looked like a child right now. It might be worth asking Nokopara about. Hey, that sketch the guards had looked nothing like Kishirika. What do you know about that? Demon Kings are fairly flippant when it comes to details. Lady Atofe probably didn't bother to factor in the Demon Emperor's current age. Ah, okay. Batty Gaddy was pretty lackadaisical in that respect, too. It wouldn't be surprising if Atofe were the same. I guess we should go pay Lady Atofe a visit and have a chat. I stood up and Nokopara panicked. Hold up! Wait a minute! I'm telling you, Lady Atofe is bad news! You're better off staying away from her. No, I'm afraid this is necessary. As long as we don't offend her, we'll surely have no problems. We wouldn't, would we? I certainly hope not. If push came to shove, I could fire off magic from behind the safety of my Zenoba shield. All I had to do was hit her with a good shot like I did Batty Gaddy, then make a run for it. Once we got away, we could hunt Batty Gaddy down and have him mediate as we begged for forgiveness. All right, later, Warner. Thanks for stopping by. Yep, sounds like a plan. If you intend to seek an audience, I believe my title should come in handy. Zenoba stood up and chuckled. I didn't share his confidence. Maybe he was royalty and accustomed to using his position like that, but Ariel seemed a safer bet if we were taking that route. Hold up. After seeing how things went down with Perugius, maybe Zenoba is the more likable of the two. Ariel was desperate to make connections. Her rather transparent ulterior motives might sour the Demon King's mood. Is Lady Atofe knowledgeable about fine arts? I asked Nokopara. Huh? Fine arts? I have no idea. I mean, she is a Demon King, and most of those guys have some kind of hobby like that. As for Lady Atofe, not really sure if fine arts are up her alley or not. What about Batty Gaddy? What was his hobby? I got the impression he didn't really have one, unless you counted alcohol. He did like drinking the expensive stuff. Nokopara mentioned Atofe was terrifying, but Batty Gaddy could also be intimidating. If she wasn't any worse than he was, I'd be fine. All right, well, for the moment, we'll just head on over and see. With that, Alinalise and Cliff stood up and joined us. The whole sorry affair took us about an hour and left us standing a distance away from the castle. In the briefest summary, it was a disaster. Zenoba showed the guards the Chiron royal family crests, and I interpreted for him, requesting an audience. Sadly, never heard of that country. Plus, Lady Atofe is busy. She has no time to waste on meetings. In other words, we were turned away at the door. Not that I could really blame them. Chiron was a rather tiny country. It was like someone from a small African country announcing themselves to a Japanese person. Plus, we didn't have an appointment. It was only natural for them to dismiss us. Terribly sorry, master. It seems my country lacks the necessary authority. Zenoba wasn't upset, despite how rude their rejection was. Instead, he apologized to me. No, I didn't give the idea enough thought. That was my bad. Well, I also doubted if they'd even heard of my country. He frowned. Zenoba wasn't the patriotic sort, but surely he found it insulting to have his homeland belittled like this. Cliff sighed. Hey, why don't we rest a little bit? He was leaning against a nearby wall. I still had plenty of energy to keep going, but Zenoba had sweat beading across his forehead. Yes, I am a bit exhausted. Given his monstrous strength, it was easy to assume he had a lot of stamina. But he was more of the indoor type. Maybe a full day of exercise was taking its toll on him. We had been working nonstop. Even my mind was starting to drag. Maybe we should rest. You all have a point, I said. How about we get a small bite to eat? There hadn't been any time to eat lunch. The jerky we munched on in the meantime hadn't been enough to fill our stomachs. I wasn't too keen on eating since the food here was pretty disgusting, but we didn't have much choice. Master, there appears to be a street stall over there, so why don't we try that? Would that be all right with you, Lord Cliff? Now that Zenoba mentioned it, I caught a whiff of grilled meat. My attention was drawn to a skewer stall. Spices filled the air, indicating this was some of the demon continent's zesty meat, where there were 3 customers waiting. I'm not complaining, but are we going to stand and eat? Isn't that poor manners? Asked Cliff. It's a bit late to worry about that now. Lilius joined the back of the line. I'll order for us, she said. In the meantime, Rudius, please get us some chairs. I hesitated. You sure you'll be okay even though you don't speak the language? I can use my fingers to indicate how many we want. I'll be fine. In other words, body language was universal enough that she didn't have to speak the language. In the meantime, I magically conjured some chairs on the roadside. Standing and eating was all well and good, but we should sit down if we were going to rest. It says, but if we should sit down if we were going to rest. Man, sentence structure and some extra words typed in can really play hell with you. And of course, spell check won't catch that. I didn't mind planting my butt in the dirt, but Zenoba and Cliff clearly felt different. Cliff left to join a little niece. I'll go accompany her. Whew! Zenoba and I took our seats, and I finished setting up. Exhaustion swept over me. I felt like all the effort we'd put in had been for nothing. We had no idea whether we could find Kishirika or not. Even if we did find her, she might not have the information we sought. In fact, there was a high probability that she wouldn't. Like Batty Gaddy, she had lived an incredibly long life, but she probably didn't care that much about illness. Plus, how many details would she recall after so many millennia? Don't overthink things, Zenoba warned. Huh? Master, you seem to feel far more responsibility than you should when it comes to Lady Nanahoshi's illness. Yeah, you're right. Logically, I knew her being sick had nothing to do with me, but my emotions had a mind of their own. Zenoba continued. But I do understand how she feels a little, wanting to return home where she lived most of her life. That's why I'm here, trying to help. Really? I thought you were pretty attached to the way your life is now. Of course I am. But I've recently started to feel nostalgic about my home. Apparently, even he had fond memories of Sharon. I thought he would be fine anywhere as long as he had his dolls or figures, but Zenoba wasn't so different from normal people. Considering how desperate Lady Nanahoshi is to return, I can only imagine she left something incredibly precious behind when she came here. Yeah, the guy she loves and her family, from what she's told me. It was a pretty cliché answer, but that didn't make the people she treasured any less valuable. I knew just how important family and loved ones were, and how much it hurt to lose them. I'm afraid I can't relate to either of those things, said Zenoba. Think of it this way. The way she feels about them is the way you feel about dolls. As we spoke, I kept my gaze on Cliff and Alinalise. The two of them had changed a lot since I first met them. As usual, Cliff sucked at reading the atmosphere, but he did try to empathize with others in his own way. Linelise was much the same. I still remembered when she spent all her time pursuing men, but if they got separated now, I knew they would expend every effort to find one another. I continued watching them in silence. The customer in front of them purchased their meat, and a beggar with a tattered hood scrambled over in hopes of getting some scraps, only for the customer to kick them away. Cliff's nose flared as he watched, but Alinley stopped him before he could pick a fight. Knowing Cliff's character, I bet he'll buy extra for the poor beggar. He did just that. The beggar thanked him profusely before gobbling down the skewers. Then they started pleading with Cliff for seconds. Although exasperated, he relented them and handed them some more. The beggar took his hand, their whole body trembling with gratitude. Hold up a second. I'm getting deja vu here. Hadn't I experienced this same thing a long time ago? When was it? And where? I was pretty sure it was the demon continent. No, wait. Was it on the Miller's continent? I remembered sharing some food with a beggar. No, they weren't a beggar, were they? No. No, more importantly, didn't that beggar just thank Cliff in human tongue? Right then, the beggar grinned and began laughing maniacally. Her voice was so loud it echoed through the city. She threw off her cape and bellowed, "My name is Kishirika Kishiris. The people call me the great emperor of the demon world. Since you saved my life, I will grant your wish. Go on. Name whatever it is you desire." My head started spinning. How did you not see that coming, you absolute moron? Kishirika looked the same as ever. She wore knee-high boots, leather-hot pants, and a leather tube top. The revealing getup exposed the flat narrowness of her physique, from the pale skin of her clavicle to her belly button to her thighs. She had the same voluptuous wavy purple hair and 2 goat horns. She was covered in more dirt and grime this time, but there was no mistaking her for someone else. This is the demon world's great emperor, Kishirika Kishirisu. And, yep, that is, in fact, her. Nope, not that. There we go. In all her glory. The big idiot herself. Cliff stared, dumbfounded. Alinelise also watched in mute amazement. Her face pulled into a completely blank expression that I'd never seen her wear before. I shared their confusion, though. Even I had no idea what was happening right now. Zenoba was the only one who kept a cool head. He put his hand on his chin and mumbled, "Ah, so this is the woman that His Majesty Batty thinks so fondly of." A saying suddenly came to mind. The good you do for others is the good you do for yourself. Cliff was a prime example of that. It was easy to say you would help a person in need if you came across them, but many didn't follow through. After all, beggars wore tattered clothes, had grime-covered skin, and rotten-looking teeth. More often than not, they also smelled foul. That discouraged people from going near them for fear of catching something. Could I see such a person, feel compassion for them, and offer food I just bought for myself? Maybe not. I wouldn't kick them the way the other customer did, but I wasn't a philanthropist either. Cliff, however, did possess a charitable heart. When I first met him, I thought he was narrow-minded and petty, but now I thought he would one day make a splendid priest. Viva Cliff! Okay, let's quit lavishing Cliff with such praise and get down to the more important question. Why is Kishirika acting like a beggar here of all places? Come on now, there's no need to be shy. Name whatever your heart desires and tell me your name while you're at it, said Kishirika. Huh? Oh, okay. My name is Cliff Grimoire? Cliff was still in shock from her sudden declaration that she was the very individual we'd been searching for. He glanced back at me with a pleading look. Kishirika took a haughty pose as she responded. Cliff, Feeding me was quite the noble achievement. After all, I haven't had a single bite in the past 6 months. I stepped closer and inserted myself into the conversation. In that case, would you care for some more food? Oh, truly? You boys really are generous. Yes, generous indeed. You will go far in life. Mark my words. Kishirika chowed down on more great tortoise skewers. The way she inhaled them made me wonder if she was storing it all in that tiny little body, and she just kept going one after another. Whew, that filled me right up. Now I'll be good for another year. Having finished her meal, Kishirika slapped her hand against her belly in satisfaction. We'd bought every last skewer the stand owner had for sale. At least he was happy at having done so much business. Now with that done, It's been a long time, Lady Kishirika, I said. Hmm? And who are you? As I lowered my head, she snorted and stared me down. Hmm? Oh! One of her eyes spun, switching from a normal one to one of her demon eyes. Then she slammed her fist into her palm. Aha! It's you, the human boy with the disgusting mana! Of course I remember you. I gave you one of my eyes. I think your name was Roombus? Yeah! That was it. It's been a while. Rudius Grey Rat, I corrected. I'm not a damn cleaning robot, thank you very much. Yes, Rudius! A long time indeed. You sure have gotten much larger. Well, how did things go after we parted? Have you been doing well for yourself? She patted my thigh, going as high as she could reach. It reminded me of a section leader at an office job patting his subordinate on the shoulder. Yes, the eye you gave me before really saved my life numerous times. Yes, I'm sure it did, she nodded, pleased. She really is way too easy to manipulate. However, I will only bestow my reward upon one of you. Just one. She whipped around and thrust her finger at Cliff. You, Cliff Grimoire. State your desire, whatever it is. He gulped and stared back at her. In that moment, doubt crept into my mind. He wouldn't, would he? It was common knowledge that Kishirika Kishirisu offered demon eyes as a reward to people, and Cliff had his own objectives. A demon eye might greatly help him create magical implements. Even I realized that, which is why I hope I'm wrong. In that case, please tell me how to cure drying syndrome, Cliff said finally. Oh? An acquaintance of mine came down with it. They have managed to survive so far, but there's no indication that they'll recover on their own. If you know of some way to help, please tell me. My shoulders sagged with relief. My worries were entirely unfounded, and honestly, a bit offensive to Cliff. I would have to treat him to a meal when we got back home. Drying syndrome, you say? That name does bring back memories. I will admit I am a bit surprised to hear someone coming down with it in this day and age, though. Zenoba and I exchanged looks, nodding. Seemed Kishirika was familiar with this illness. Is it curable? A silly question! Of course it is! All you have to do is get some Sokus grass, make some tea from it, drink it, and you'll flush out the problem along with your poop. I grinned. This was perfect. There was a chance that Kishirika's memory was spotty and this grass wouldn't work, but at least now we had some information. By make some tea, she probably meant to decorate the leaves and to decoct the leaves in some water and then drink it. Sokus grass. I've never heard of that before. Where can we find it? Mayo, the Phantom City. Phantom City? Yikes. When the word phantom was used in the same sentence as city, it usually meant the place in question was difficult to find. Like you could only ever visit it in your dreams, or you had to wade through a desert to get to it. Something like that. Just north of that city, at the tip of the Redworm Mountains, lies a cave at the depths of a ravine known as the Redworm's Tail. Tucked within its deepest, darkest folds is a bountiful harvest of Sokus grass. So we have to go to a cave in this Worm's Tail place? This felt like an RPG. After coming all this way, was she really going to send us on an errand quest to retrieve the grass? And we had to go to a cave located in a place called the Worm's Tail? If the name was any indication, we would probably be fighting some dragons along the way. That was a tall order. No, this isn't that bad, honestly. The worst case scenario was not finding Kishirika and spending the next several years searching. Okay, but hold up. I knew of the Redworm Mountains, but I'd never heard of a place called the Redworm's Tail. So where exactly is the Worm's Tail located? Wise question. You see, at the end of the second Great Human-Demon War, the Dragon God and Fighting God's battle ended with a hole punched in the continent, wiping out the place that was once called the Worm's Tail. What? So the place we needed didn't exist anymore? So this story she was feeding us was entirely different from what I'd heard. History said that the huge hole in the continent was the result of Kishirika's battle with the Golden Knight. That said, Kishirika didn't seem like the fighting type. Well, whatever. It was a legend after all, and people often spun those stories in ways that were convenient for them. Right now, my priority was the Sokus grass. Does that mean Sokus grass doesn't exist anymore? Kishirika shook her head. No, I was merely explaining what the Worm's Tail Cave, that the Worm's Tail Cave is where it was initially discovered. If that was where it was first discovered, did that mean it also grew elsewhere? Sokus grass grows deep inside caves where the sun doesn't shine. Based on that description, we might be able to find the grass within labyrinths. Could we just go to any old labyrinth, though? If so, we needed to rethink our party composition before we ventured in. We would need about 20 people. No, we could offer a reward, recruit some adventurers, and send 100 people in. And, Kishirika continued, that was why I ordered every Demon King to cultivate this grass beneath their castle. After all, the herb is delicious. Those who drink it have exceptionally long lifespans, namely because the ones who drink it are all immortal Demon Kings. So basically, what she was telling us was that every Demon King had this stuff growing under their castle? And given that it was considered a luxury tea, it might be possible for us to find merchants selling it? Did you think you would have to go fetch it yourselves? I bet you did, didn't you? You pitiful things. It's growing right over there in my castle. No one would blame me for seeing how far I could kick this idiot, right? Cliff seemed to have the same idea. He charged forward with his hands balled into fists. You little... Please wait, Master Cliff. Let's not be hasty. We need to make her spill everything she knows first. Yeah, you're right. Whoops. Maybe I shouldn't have said that last bit out loud. Oh, that was him, not... Okay. Please wait, Master Cliff. Let's not be hasty. We need to make sure she spills everything she knows first. Yeah, you're right. Whoops. Maybe I shouldn't have said that last bit out loud. If there really was Sokus grass inside the castle, there was nothing to be angry about. In fact, it was perfect. Sure, she worried us for nothing, and that irked me a little, but this was a lesson of its own. Okay, cool your head. You could just get on your knees and beg for it. All right, Lady Kishirika, then I implore you to share some of your Sokus grass with us. Of course! There's just one little problem. What problem is that? Well, you see, there's a detestable individual staying in my castle at the moment. They are rather difficult to deal with and not terribly intelligent, so I have spent the past 6 months on the run from... Uh-oh. Her words trailed off as she stared at something behind us. I followed her gaze. Several soldiers dressed in black armor stood there. 5, 6, 7, 20 in total. Worse, another group gathered in the streets opposite us, and more spilled from a nearby alley. Pretty soon we were surrounded by 30 of them. They stared us down as if trying to intimidate us. Lily stepped forward, her hand hovering over the sword at her hip. A cold wind coated her forehead. Oh, not wind. A cold sweat coated her forehead. With their numbers, there was no way we could run. What should we do? I could grab 2 of them, Zenobia in my right arm and Cliff in my left, and use my magic to make a flying leap. But what about Kishirika and Elise? The man apparently in charge of the soldiers advanced toward us. His voice was hoarse yet vibrant, and he said, "We are the personal guard of immortal Demon King Oftote Ratofe, who rules over the Gaslow territory." He spoke in fluent human tongue. "By her royal order, please hand over Lady Kishirika and come back to the castle. And come with us back to the castle." Behind him, the other knights pulled out their sketches and compared them to the real-life Kishirika. Their faces filled with confusion as Nokopara suspected. As Nokopara suspected, the picture didn't look like Kishirika at all because Atofe had been loose with the details. But although she didn't resemble the woman they were instructed to apprehend, shouting at the top of her lungs that she was the demon world's great emperor was enough to attract anyone's attention. "And if we say no," Elise quipped, the guards immediately drew their sword. The deafening clang of blades leaving their sheaths echoed through the area. "We will show you no mercy." Not that I had the ability to tell a person's strength at a glance, but even I could see these people were experienced at battle. There was a marked difference between a novice and those who had weathered many fights before, and these soldiers were undoubtedly the latter. I sensed they were far more capable than a regular band of knights. You mustn't listen to them. If you let them take you to the castle, there is no telling what may happen to you. This is Demon King Atofe Ratofe we're talking about," Kishirika reasoned. "She's nothing if not a complete imbecile." My brows furrowed. She had a point. Why should we agree to let this supposed idiot apprehend us? We had no business with a Tofi. We had to find some way to weasel out of this. Ah, but hold on a second. Isn't the grass we need beneath their castle? Maybe we can sneak inside. No, let's be realistic. I've never seen the grass before, so I wouldn't even know what it looked like, what to look for. As I hesitated, the leader of the knights removed his helmet. I implore you. His hair was flaming red, and his face was wreathed with age. He gave us a soft smile and lowered his head. If you don't come, I'm afraid my lady will punish us. I swear we won't treat you unkindly, so please. The way he bowed like that was sincere enough. I used to be the kind of Japanese person who didn't care about refusing people, but not anymore. When someone spoke so earnestly like this, it was hard not to feel obligated to humor them. Don't trust a word of what he says. A Tofi isn't the kind of person you can have a reasonable conversation with. Kishirika had cold beads of sweat pouring down her face. There was obviously more to this than she was letting on. I heard what you were talking about, said the old knight captain. We grow Sokus grass in the Gaslow territory as well, so we know how to cultivate it if you desire. We can supply a potted one for you to take home, so please come with us. He continued to keep his head bowed. I sensed nothing but honesty from him. Him and his subordinates could have just as easily captured us by force, but he was going out of his way to make it a request. I didn't know anything at all about a Tofi. The only demon king I knew was Batty Gaddy, but having a superior like a Tofi was undoubtedly difficult. While we're on the topic, I said, what does Lady Atofi have against Lady Kishirika? If possible, I would like to know the reason why she's been chasing Lady Kishirika for the past 6 months. A year ago, my lady came to this city for a special flask of liquor that was produced in the Gekura territory, but Lady Kishirika swiped it and drank the entire bottle. Aha! The old captain of the guard sighed. My lady was greatly looking forward to that bottle, so she was enraged by this affront. She called us in from our stations back home and ordered us to search for the culprit. Sadly, we were unaware of Lady Kishirika's current appearance, and the sketch we had of her wasn't accurate enough to be of any assistance, so we were having no luck up until now. All right, I understand your situation. I clapped some cuffs on Kishirika using my magic. There we are. That's chapter 6. So, where are we at? Because I may skip this chapter. I may skip the exercises for this chapter and move on, because I already did some from the beginning. Get a few snackos. Get a few snackos. Snackles. Yeah, I'm definitely skipping. Alright. Let's see how much. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 21 pages in this chapter. And we have chapter 8. Alrighty. Chapter 7. An audience with the immortal Demon King. To sum it up, old Kishirika Castle was a picturesque piece of demon architecture. It was built with specially crafted iron stones, and while it lacked the intricate detail and elegance of Perugia's floating castle, it was still a sight to behold. In fact, someone with more practical taste would probably like this better. Its only blemish was a sizable hole in the central tower. The place was a tourist attraction, so it was normally open to the public, provided you paid the entry fee, but the areas you could go into were limited. We were taken straight to the audience hall, not the spacious, gaudy one used to dazzle sightseers, but a cramped one that saw more regular use. Knights in black armor lined the narrow hall, and their presence made it all oppressive and stuffy. The cherry on top of this displeasing cake was that the throne in front of us was empty. She sure is taking forever, I mumbled. Zenobia replied, Royalty require time to prepare before they receive visitors. Does that include you? Have I ever taken so much time to prepare that I made you wait for me, master? As much as you love the fine arts, you don't seem to have many interests in clothes. Zenobia grunted. It disheartens me to hear you say that. I thought you, of all people, would understand the care I put into my buttons and embroidery. You mean you fuss over that stuff when you're buying it or having... You mean you fuss over that stuff when you're buying it or having it made, right? Not when you're getting ready. We had been waiting for at least 2 hours. Our senseless banter had kept me from being bored out of my mind, but the sun had already set. I wasn't complaining about the standing around being exhausted, but I wish they'd given us seats while we waited. Zenobia and I were the only ones in the audience chamber aside from the guards. Linelise and Cliff had gone off with the guard knights to retrieve the grass they needed from the castle's basement. Hey, where is Lady Atofi? Is she coming? I've already told you we sent someone to fetch her. Isn't she a bit late, though? Don't tell me she's outside the city. She's not the punctual type. Her sense of time doesn't work like the rest of us. But if you give her a day's grace, okay, but we can't just keep these people waiting around forever. You lot shut your mouths, I overheard the knights squabbling. They were acting pretty casual. Hearing their conversation put me at ease. Suddenly, the old knight captain made his way over. She will soon be here, so please wait a bit longer. Also, I ask that you refuse any reward she offers you. Sorry, a reward? If things go south and you wind up accepting a reward from her, there'll be nothing the rest of us can do to help you. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. I nodded, genuinely intending to take his advice. I had no idea what he meant, but I had no interest in accepting any reward. I hadn't fallen so far that I would sell out Kishirika for compensation. Speaking of, said demon emperor was currently bound in so much rope she resembled a caterpillar as she lay there on the floor. She would be punished later. I didn't know what they had in mind. A spanking? Toilet cleaning duty? But surely it wouldn't be too severe. That aside, I couldn't let my guard down. We were meeting a demon king, after all. The only high-ranking demons I knew were Kishirika and Batty Gaddy. The two of them are always so happy-go-lucky, but I bet if you pissed them off... Huh. Weird. I get the feeling it wouldn't be that bad, actually. Move it! A voice sounded behind me. I glanced over my shoulder and saw a woman. Of everyone I'd met, she looked the most like your stereotypical demon. Her skin was bluish-black, her hair white, and her eyes blood-red. She had wings like a bat and a single thick horn protruded from her head. Like the knights, she also wore black armor, although it was clear that hers had seen far more battle than theirs. It was covered in scratches and had decorative elements that had long ripped off. An enormous sword hung at her waist, one that looked far too large for her scrawny arms. Its sheath was far more extravagant than the other soldiers. She wasn't that tall, probably average height for an adult female. Taller than Ariel, but shorter than me. The most noteworthy thing about her was something else altogether. There was an aura of indescribable rage and hostility about her. If violence were a scent, she would wear it like a perfume. For it was obvious that she would use force on anyone who tried to disobey me. That reminded me of Eris. She was like a female knight. No, a knight captain, to be more accurate. It would be wise not to provoke her. Did you not hear me? I said move it, she iterated. Oh, yes, of course. I obediently stepped out of the way. Much better. Long locks of white hair swayed behind her as she strode to the throne and spun to face us. She sat down, having removed the sheath from her waist, slammed the sword between her legs, taking a kingly pose. She took a deep breath and bellowed, I am the immortal Demon King, Atoferet Tofe, Ryback. Huh? You're an idiot if you did not recognize her. Like, clearly she has a different aura from everybody. Rudy can be, for such a smart guy, he's really stupid a lot of the time. As I tilted my head in confusion, the black armored knights hastily removed their swords from their sheaths, raising them as a show of respect and fealty to their liege. One of them abstained, however, and approached the throne. It was the old knight captain. Lady Atofe, why did you come in from the front entrance? How many times have I told you to enter the throne room from the back door? The reason should be obvious. I enjoy entering from the front more. Your whims should not dictate your behavior. Don't you know that the best part of challenging a demon king as a hero is being able to waltz through the throne room before engaging them in a fight? What relevance does that have? Your father was once one of the 5 great demon kings. Oh, how he would lament to see you behave to see the way you behave. And not only him, what would your husband, Lord Ryback, think? Shut it already! Atofi pulled her sword from its sheath and thrust it at the old man so fast I couldn't follow her movements. The old knight captain drew his sword to parry her attack, but he wasn't quick enough. His helmet went flying as he collapsed backward. The other knights in the room rushed toward him in a panic. Stop hollering in front of our guests, snapped Atofi. My old man would be rolling in his grave. The knight captain's helmet came rolling toward me. It was cracked right down the middle. What incredible power. I bent to pick it up and found the inside coated in wet, sticky blood. Wait, hold on. This means her attack actually connected with his head. Seriously? Did she actually kill him? Very well, but I still implore you to be mindful. Despite my concerns, the old knight captain peeled himself off the floor as if he was completely fine. He bowed to Atofi, wisps of smoke rising from his forehead. Looks like he's okay. Maybe he was immortal too. In fact, maybe the rest of the guards were all immortal. Glad you get it now. All right, let's do this thing over again. As you command. Atofi returned her sword to its sheath and resumed her Highlander-like pose. One of the other knights brought the captain a new helmet. They fell into formation. Once again, they unsheathed their swords and offered them up toward their leader. I am immortal demon king Tofere Tofe, Ryback. Zenoba quickly took a knee and bowed his head, so I followed suit. I knew nothing about this type of etiquette and assumed I should just follow his example. First, allow me to thank you. We were able to catch this idiot thanks to you. Atofi turned her gaze to Kishirika. Our demon emperor was rolled up like a burrito. She looked resigned, as if she'd completely given up hope. I almost felt bad for her. We'd essentially spat on her after she'd helped us out and gave us the answers we sought. Still, it was a necessary evil. We had our own objectives to fulfill. We had no references for her, so our search for it dragged on. You did well to find her for us. Ah, so it was just as I suspected. Lady Atofi was loose with the details when she had that sketch made. Also, Atofi continued, posing as she stared off into the distance. Her voice trailed off, and she remained completely silent. 5 minutes passed with her frozen like that. Did her engine give out or something? More. What was it I was supposed to say next? A reward. You were going to give them a reward. Apparently the old knight captain's name was Moore. Something about that name made me picture a guy smiling maniacally, like, Moore. Yes, I do need to give them a reward. Atofi mumbled to herself. No, that's not necessary. I recited the line I'd mentally prepared after Moore's advice. I assumed this was a formality. That was probably why he suggested I turn her down. Atofi stomped her foot. Are you saying you don't want my reward? She glared at me, her eyes murderous. My legs began quaking. This enmity she exuded was no joke. It was on a completely different level from Linea's and Persenna's. It was the same animosity in Regard's eyes when he glared at me. No, I'd be happy to receive your reward, you idiot! He told you not to. You really don't think very well, do you, Rudy? It was better not to defy someone like her. If she wanted to insist on giving us something, it was better to just take it. Yep, that's all I could do. Moore had advised against this, but if the alternative was to intentionally piss her off, it was probably better to give in. I cleared my throat and asked, if you don't mind me asking, what is it you intend to give us? Atofi's eyes narrowed, a satisfied grin stretching across her face. Power! Power, huh? Power. Well, I wouldn't be lying if I said I didn't want that. If that was what she was offering, it was worth it. Okay, but Mr. Moore told us we were better off not accepting it. Maybe I should just call the whole thing off and tell her he already agreed to give us some of those leaves in the castle's basement, so we'll just take that and go home. I grant you the privilege of joining my personal guard so you can trade your bodies. You what? See? Told you to shut the fuck up, Rudius. You're a dumbass who knows nothing of this world, and you're like, oh, I'll just take it. One glare, and you pussed out like a bitch. Huh? So she wasn't just gonna put her hand on my head and awaken some latent power in me, or grant me a demon eye like Kishirika had? You look pretty puny, but hey, 10 years of my training will bring you up to snuff. That's right. For a whole decade, I will go without rest to help temper your body. Well, what do you think? It's a great honor, isn't it? 10 years without any breaks? No, I've got 2 wives and a kid waiting for me back home. So I'd like to pass on the whole boot camp thing if it's all the same to you. Sure, 10 years of training surely would make me a lot stronger, but what would be the point if I had to abandon everything to do it? What would be the purpose of getting that strong? Who was I aiming to defeat? Okay, maybe I could protect my loved ones better if I were stronger, but was that worth abandoning them for a decade? So what do I do? No, I mean, I have no choice but to turn her down. I can't join her personal guard. I glanced at Moore. He shook his head, a look of resignation in his face. I'm sorry, but as great of an honor as that is, I'll have to abstain. Nonsense! Now, someone, go bring him an extra suit of black armor and prepare a contract for him to sign. Several of Atofi's personal guards scrambled out of the door to her room. I am giving you the best armor, the best training, and allowing you to enter the most renowned guard in the whole of the demon continent. There is no greater honor. You won't be able to oppose me once you sign the contract. Not that you would try anyway. I'm sure even without such a formality. In fact, you must be overjoyed right now. I wasn't the least bit overjoyed. Still, of all the high-ranking demons I'd met, she sounded the most like a demon king. In a strange way, I was glad to have the opportunity to meet her. Maybe I wasn't the only one she had offered this reward to, either. Perhaps others in her guard had also been forced into a contract. You're an idiot. You're a fucking idiot. They tried to warn you, and your dumbass didn't listen. I'm terribly sorry, I said, but I have a family waiting at home. I can't leave them for 10 years. I don't see the problem. I haven't seen my son once in the last 100 years. Trust me, no news is good news. It's proof that they're still alive. What, so because she'd abandoned her kid for a century, she wanted me to do the same to my family for a decade? Heck no, but 10 years is an incredibly long time for a human. Plus, I promised my family I would go back and? Veins were twitching in her forehead. You're an idiot, Rudius. She's a muscle-headed moron. Words don't work on her. How are you not seeing this, you absolutely thundering dumbass? She was starting to lose her temper. And I have a sick friend waiting for me. I need to find a cure for her as soon as possible and get back home. Besides, I have so many other things to do right now. I can't just stay here and hoard power for myself. Shut up! Atofi snapped so loudly it echoed against the walls. Oh boy, that was mildly terrifying. Okay, no, it was just plain terrifying. What's wrong with her? What is she yelling at me for? Are you going to enter my personal guard or not? Quit playing word games and answer. I'm not going to. She froze in place, her face turned red as her expression contorted. Why? Why would you refuse me? Huh? Didn't I literally just list all the reasons? Now was a good time to leave things to Zenoba, or at least that was my plan, but I looked over at him and he practically had question marks dancing above his head as he stared quizzically back at me. Ah, crap, that's right. We're speaking in demon tongue this whole time. He had no idea what we were saying. I can't rely on him. So what was I supposed to do? How was I going to convince her to give up? You're an idiot. You're a fucking idiot. You should have said no, no, no the entire time. The knights had been in high spirits moments ago, but after my exchange with the Tofi, the atmosphere turned hostile and tense. It was like they were a sports team who had come to play on their opponent's home turf. I told you, Kishirika blurted. She's a complete imbecile. You're better off not getting involved with her. You can't even have a proper conversation with her. Shut up! I'm not an imbecile! A Tofi abruptly shouted, drawing her sword. Now I get it. You're making fun of me. That's why you said you wouldn't accept my reward. You think I'm stupid, so you're mocking me. She strode furiously toward us. What? Hey, hold up. Lady Atofi, please try to calm down. You'll break something inside the castle if you keep swinging that around. I'm not an idiot, okay? I'm not. She brandished her sword, face contorted in anger as she stormed toward us. Her guards tried to head her off and stop her. Move it! Atofi shouted, shoved them aside, and came charging at us like a bull. Oh, crap. Oh, crap. Should I use my magic? No, it might make things worse. You've already reached the point of no return, you absolute moron. It's like everyone at this point in time has decided, let's be dumb. I'll handle this, Zenoba said. He got up and stood in front of me. He grabbed Atofi's arms as she lunged at us. She tried to kick him out of the way, but he did not budge. As you might expect with a blessed child's power. You're pretty strong. Her eyes widened with intrigue as she stared at Zenoba, a smile curving across her lips. Obviously to what she was saying, oblivious to what she was saying, since he didn't speak the language, Zenoba berated her. Calm yourself. We mean you no offense. We only want the grass you have in your basement. Stop speaking those foreign words at me, she snapped back, uninterested in whatever he said. In fact, it seems she didn't understand the human tongue at all, despite Morse fluency in the language. Still grasping her sword, Atofi tried to pummel and kick Zenoba, but to no avail. At last she howled in displeasure. You freak! You're as hard as a rock! You must have some serious battle aura protecting you. Interesting. With that, she severed her arm with her sword, freeing herself from Zenoba's hold. That's right, Atofi cut off her own limb with zero hesitation. And Rudius, I want you to picture this. All of this is going on, and Rudius is just standing there staring like an absolute dumbass. I hate Rudius and his inactivity. Like, maybe this is like some of that Japanese, like, don't rock the boat, the nail that stands out gets hammered bullshit. But I'm sorry. Their indecision at times really bothers me in these light novels. It's like, why are you standing there taking half an hour to think through what should be obvious? Clearly things have spiraled out of control, and you're not going to get a grip on it with words. You're going to have to leave. You're going to have to run. Forced plot idiocy. Goddamn fucking forced plot idiocy. Yeah, right? Well, yes and no. This is still very much in character with Rudius. This has been a problem of his for a long time. So this isn't necessarily forced into the storyline. This is just this is one of those things that really, really annoys me about the character of Rudius is anytime he gets surprised, he's just a deer in the fucking headlights. Anyway. That's right. Atofi cut off her own limb with zero hesitation. In her eyes, it was just a nuisance holding her back. She severed it with the casual indifference of someone snipping off a loose thread after their sweater got snagged. The moment her arm separated from her body, it turned into a flaccid lump of flesh. Zenoba let go and it thudded wetly against the floor. Seconds later, it crawled toward Atofi and reconnected itself to her body. Moments later, her arm was back to normal. I'd seen Batty Gatty do something similar. The wound healed without leaving so much as a scratch behind. Fine then. I will give you a full introduction. I am the immortal demon king, Atofi Ratofi Rybok, wife of Kalman Rybok, the founder of the North God sword style. I'll show you what the style truly looks like when used in combat. She lifted her blade high in the air. Zenoba stood with his fist balled, as if he planned to take her on unarmed. A tremor ran down my spine. Something told me this wasn't going to end well, as in Zenoba could die. Yeah, you dumbass, and you led him right to this, for being an absolute moron. Blessed child though he might be, Zenoba wasn't impervious to injury. For example, I managed to scratch even the dragon god Orsted with my magic, powerful as he was. There were no absolutes in this world. Zenoba, for instance, was weak to fire. Also, while he may be resistant to physical attacks, that didn't mean they couldn't injure him. Ugh! I immediately started pouring my mana into a spell, intending to make it as fast and dense as possible. Casting Stone Cannon would take too long, unfortunately. But I had more experience using magic now than I did before. Ha ha ha! Now die! This is North God Style's ultimate electric! Purple fire shot from my prosthetic arm. It crackled through the air, flashing so brightly that we were momentarily blinded. Atofi was struck backward, the sword slipping through her fingers. A numb tingling sensation shot through my hand, all the way up to my elbow, but it was nothing to worry about. I hadn't poured enough mana into that spell to electrocute her. Ha! Not one to miss an opportunity when his opponent was defenseless, Zenoba launched his own attack. His fist landed right in her face. Gah! Her features contorted as she rocketed through the air, slamming into the castle wall. It shattered under the force of her collision, and Atofi went tumbling out along with falling debris. Ah! Lady Atofi! The knights bunched by the hole in the wall like a group of fussy sparrows. I made a mistake. I was so focused on protecting you, Master, that I didn't hold back. I wonder if that killed her. Nah, I'm sure she's still alive. They did call her an immortal demon king for They did call her an immortal demon king for a reason. The problem was what would happen now. Oh no. Now they've really done it. Yeah, this is bad. I can't believe it. 20 or so of the black armored guards crowded us, muttering amongst themselves. I was sure they weren't going to let us leave after what we did to their master. I lifted my staff, ready to take them on. This was my fault. If only I had listened to Moore's warning, this never would have... Yes! You absolute idiot! Wait, was I really at fault here? I kind of don't think I am, actually. I couldn't have known the way she would react like this. And if I had turned her down from the beginning, the result would have probably been the same. Yes, in a way. Anyway, I can save the blame game for later. Right now, I have to figure out how to get out of this situation. Yes, and you should have been thinking about that from the fucking beginning. You two, Moore strode over, acting as their representative. He was speaking in demon tongue this time. I must ask you again on behalf of my lady. Are you sure you don't want to join us? We'll pass, I replied without hesitating this time. Lady Atofi has an affinity for strong individuals, considering you were able to stop her before she used her ultimate technique and sent her flying through the castle walls with a single punch. I'm sure she'll want you even more now. Big surprise there. All of the demon kings I met or heard of were like that. Not a single one of them was sane. That said, none of the guards made a move to apprehend us, even though they knew Atofi would want us. In fact, after watching Atofi sail out of the wall, a few of them said things like, "Whoa, look at her go," and, "Well, that's what she gets for letting her guard down," and Moore said, "We of her personal guard don't make a move unless ordered to. However, once she gives us a command, we won't be able to let you go." At that, several of the guards gave us sharp looks. I wasn't about to mock them for not acting until ordered to do so. If anything, I was grateful. "What will happen if she catches us?" I asked. "She will challenge you to a duel, I'm sure." I frowned, confused. "If you lose in the duel, she will knock you unconscious and force you to sign a contract with her. Once that's done, you will never be able to defy her again. And, how long does this contract last for? Until you die, of course." I swallowed hard, loud enough for those around me to hear, although you can have 2 years off every 10 years. Breaking that into smaller numbers meant it was essentially 1 day off every 5 days. But why did that feel so underwhelming? The majority of her guard are here because they want to be, but there are many who were forcibly conscripted. In particular, many of the humans among us lament their fate. Even we feel sympathy for them. Several knights lowered their gazes. Apparently many of them faced our dilemma and had been forced to sign it, and been forced into a contract with a Tofi. She called it a reward, but it was basically contract slavery. So that's why he said not to accept her reward. We should have given me more details beforehand. No, it was my fault for not asking for clarification. There I was, thinking we couldn't let our guard down, and it was me who did it in the end. Yes! So, I licked my lips. What happens if we win this duel? Oh, you really think you can win? In the past 5,000 years, not a single person has beaten our master outside of North God Kalman and Demon God Laplace. You really think you could beat her? Yeah, probably not. They called her immortal, and she probably had as much stamina as Batty Gaddy. To make things worse, she seemed far more skilled at battle than he was. Batty Gaddy wasn't an acolyte of the North God's sword style, at least not when the two of us sparred. What happens if the duel ends in a draw? If she deems you an enemy, she'll challenge you again. If she sees you as an ally, she'll recognize you as an equal. I wondered how she'd feel in my case. Knowing my luck, she'd probably challenge me again. It was pretty clear that she saw me as an enemy, and if she kept dueling me over and over again, I was bound to lose eventually. So what should I do? Run. Moore didn't mince words. Right now, your friend should be finished gathering the Sokus grass. There's a tunnel below the castle that will lead you outside of town, so you can use that to flee. The other knights chimed in. Please don't end up the same way I did. Hey, if you happen to go to the holy country of Millis, idiot, you'll be able to go back there yourself in another 3 years of service. Yeah, but still... More pained voices joined the chorus, but I ignored them. We had our hands full with our own problems right now. Grateful for their willingness to let us go, I started toward the door, but I paused when I caught sight of Kishirika in my periphery. She stared at me pleadingly. After all that happened, the two of us were now fellow runaways. You don't mind if I take Lady Kishirika with me, do you? Well, our job was only to catch her the first time, so go ahead. So they were willing to turn a blind eye. The Tofi hadn't given them any new orders since they'd fulfilled the first one. I wondered if they would get punished for this. Oh well, not my problem. I used my magic to burn through the ropes binding Kishirika and released her. Ah, much appreciated. You have my gratitude. After that, we fled the throne room. We rendezvoused with Elinalise and Cliff inside the castle. They both had backpacks full of tea leaves as well as potted plants in each arm. The leaves were a yellow ochre color, and they looked like shriveled aloe vera. They said these plants are vulnerable to sunlight, so we'll need to grow them underground. They gave us a memo to take home, but I can't read what's written on it, said Elinalise. Either Roxy or I could read it later, but we need to hurry. Did something happen? I explained the situation, and Elinalise didn't look the least bit surprised. I've heard something about this. Kishirika gives demon eyes, Batty Gaddy gives knowledge, and a Tofi gives power, or something like that. You should have told me, I grumbled. I don't speak demon tongue. You should have interpreted properly for us. She had me there. I hadn't explained things to the rest of them. Well, in my defense, I wasn't a licensed interpreter, so I hardly knew what I was doing. We don't have time to stand around and bicker. Let's get a move on. So, should we take the underground tunnel or go back the way we came? Cliff's words brought my attention back to the pertinent issue at hand. A Tofi was probably still rearranging her face after Zenoba smashed it in. but she could come at us at any time. No doubt she'd be even more fired up after what we did to her. You should give up on the tunnel, said a voice from below. I looked downward at Kishirika. When we first met, we were about the same height, but I had shot up in the years since and had to crane my neck to look at her. I thought about not saying anything to pay you back for betraying me, said Kishirika, but Batty destroyed that tunnel during Laplace's war. Seriously? Indeed. That man you spoke with is a turncoat. Moore is a Tofi's right-hand man, after all. He spews nothing but lies so he can rig things in a Tofi's favor. Despite what he said, he probably started plotting against you the moment you fought her. I didn't fully trust anything she said, but he was likely right. He might have deceived us intending to corner us when we discovered the underground tunnel was a dead end. Moore, you bastard! I can't believe you betrayed us. But hold on. Even if he had deceived us, at least he didn't attack us while we were in the throne room. And although a Tofi seemed to bully him as well, that didn't automatically mean he was on our side. Plus, he had provided the grass we needed, a memo with instructions, so he wasn't entirely bad. Maybe we were the ones at fault for spurring his good intentions and straining his relationship with a Tofi. I should have just handed Kishirika over, flat out turned down her offer, and hurried back home. Maybe that would have soured my relationship with a Tofi, but I would have taken that over what we were currently facing. If he really is as shifty as you claim, wouldn't it have been better for him to capture us back in the throne room? I asked. This is a Tofi we're talking about. She likes to chase her prey and corner them herself. Makes sense. So he's setting things up for her. That kind of finesse was probably important for a man in his position, serving a demon king like a Tofi. Although, I wondered if the other knights knew about his ulterior motives. So what you're saying is we should make our escape above ground, right? Indeed. The rest of her guards should be busy with inspections right now. That's right. They were conducting an inspection near the entrance when we came in. A Tofi's entire personal guard would be gathered inside the castle right now, meaning the entrance was unguarded. But considering they let us take you, maybe they figured you would give us this information and lead us above ground, or perhaps, unbeknownst to you, they've actually repaired that underground tunnel. If you're overthinking it that much, then it doesn't really matter which way you pick, does it? True, it was a gamble either way, guessing which route the enemy would use to pursue us. Here's the thing, while you're wasting time trying to figure out one way or the other, you should be on the move. Miss Linelise, I turned to her, which one would you pick if it were you? If it were up to me, I certainly wouldn't pick the route that had a high chance of leading us into a dead end. Zenobia? Enclosed spaces are easier for me to fight in. And Cliff? I'd also go above ground. I don't like dark places. Awesome. We'll go with the majority vote then. Okay, above ground it is, I declared. Miss Linelise, you take the front and lead us straight to the teleportation circle. Zenobia and Cliff will follow right behind you, and I'll bring up the rear. Zenobia and I can carry all the luggage. I took the backpack and plants from Linelise. It was better for Zenobia and I to carry things. It was okay if I was a burden because I could just use magic, and Zenobia's superhuman strength allowed him to bear a heavy load with ease. And what, pray tell, should I be doing? Kishirika demanded. As for you, Your Majesty, Zenobia is carrying all the luggage anyway, so why don't you sit on him? Very well. She obediently perched on his shoulder. That was supposed to be a joke, but whatever. That's the safest place for her to be anyway. All right, off we go. We ran for the castle exit. As soon as we slipped out of it, an angry voice erupted from the distance. More! After them! If I wasn't scared before, I sure am now. Darkness hung over the town as we scrambled down the main thoroughfare. As much as I wanted to melt into the shadows, the whole area was too well lit. Light pouring from the crater's walls shone down on us. Picking the above-ground route had been the right choice. There wasn't a single black-armored soldier in sight, and none chasing us. Kishirika had been right on the money. Right now, the guards were probably preoccupied searching the underground tunnels. If we were lucky, a Tofi might give up her pursuit, but that wasn't likely. After all, we had taken Kishirika with us. That only gave a Tofi more incentive to track us down. As we broke away from the main street, we passed the Adventurers Guild. I wondered if Nokopara was still inside. I never thought we would leave the city this quickly. We had already paid our lodging fees for the night, and our clothes were still in our rooms. It was a waste to leave those things behind, but they weren't that important. Better to cut our losses. As we passed through the mostly deserted marketplace, I spotted the alleyway where we'd once dyed Regard's hair. We ended up fleeing the city back then too. It was hard to believe the same thing was happening again. I honestly had nothing but bitter memories of Rikarisu. Finally, we arrived at the large crack that made the city's entrance. There was a couple of guards posted there, but no soldiers in black armor. One had the head of a lizard and the other had the head of a pig. They stared in confusion, but let us slip by. The teleportation circle wasn't far from the city's outskirts. We looped around the perimeter of the crater. Oh? Where is it you're going? Kishirika asked. There's a teleportation circle in this direction. It's what we used to get here. You don't say. Hard to believe such a thing still remains out here, but then again... Bit my tongue. We had left a marker in the ground to guide us back when it was time to leave. There would be no problem locating the circle. It was dark outside the city, but Alinalius's elf vision would guide us. We need only turn left at the mark, scale up the slope, and then the teleportation circle would be right in front of us. As we reached our marker, I skidded to a stop. I had no other choice. You took your time getting here. Above us, on the slope, right at the entrance to the teleportation circle, stood a Tofi. She was joined by no less than 10 of her guard. At that moment, I noticed the hole in the ground near the entrance to our magic circle. Perhaps that was the exit to the tunnel that had run under the castle. Moore never fails to impress. It was just as he said. I'll be sure to praise him later, a Tofi mumbled to herself. He read our movements? No, that wasn't right. They managed to head us off. It wasn't our movements they had read, but our destination. Well, you sure did get here awfully fast, didn't you? I said awkwardly. Flying here was simple. I could see you and your comrades easily from the sky. As she answered, her wings twitched behind her. Looks like more caught up as well. I glanced over my shoulder, and a band of black-armored knights were making their way toward us. They must have looped around the edge of the crater as well. While Atofi made her way here from the sky, 10 of her guards had taken the underground passage, and the rest pursued us above ground. So they used every route at their disposal to chase us down. It was obvious when you thought about it. They weren't Inspector Zenigata, so they had to split up this way. If they knew our destination, they had every reason to check every possible escape route. Guards fanned out behind us. We were surrounded. There was nowhere for us to run. Our only way out was sealed off. Moore, you did a splendid job. Everything went the way you said it would, said Atofi. If you're that pleased, I hope you'll hold up your end and do as I asked you. No. Atofi's response was curt as she lifted a hand. At her gesture, the other knights drew their swords. Now then. The Demon King stepped toward us and unleashed her own weapon. As she towered above us on the slope, she pointed her blade at me and said, Ha ha ha! I am the immortal Demon King Atofi Ratofi, Rybok. If you best me, I will declare you a hero. If you lose, you will be my puppet until the day you breathe your last. The smile on her face was savage, and a stifling aura of bloodlust wafted off her. Despite being shorter than me, she looked like a 5-meter tall giant right now. Sorry, Sylphie. I might not be able to make it back home after all. Yes, because you're a fucking moron. You had so many warnings leading up to this. Kishirika told you she was a barbaric, stupid oaf. You didn't listen. They told you to refuse. You didn't listen. When it was beyond obvious that she was going to try to force the issue and that she wouldn't listen to common sense, you still tried to push on with words. Rudius, you're a moron, and you deserve your fate. Alright. I'm going to be out of breath for a while now. How many pages are left in this? Okay, 23 pages. Jesus Christ, these chapters just keep getting longer, man. 23 pages. I'm gonna start slowing down and just doing 3 chapters a week from this point on. If the chapters are gonna be that short, or if the chapters are gonna be that long. I mean, I'm 65% of the way through this book already. Yeah, that puts me at 74%. So yeah, it's gonna be crazy going through this. Well, the thing is, you're trying to work things out diplomatically. 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 Anyway, you're trying to work things out diplomatically with someone whose diplomacy is literally just fight. Especially because it's so late right now. Jesus Christ, 7 o'clock. Spider, you're only saying that because you don't live in the UK. I know what time zone it is for them. And I'm not trying to make my mods stay up too late. 10 more.
Alright, that's 40 squats. That's 40 sit-ups. Okay. 10 more seconds. Okay. All that's left are push-ups. 30 to go. $20 to go. $15. $10 to go. $5 to go. One more. Fuck, that hurt. All right. No more exercise redeems. Once I get done with this chapter, I'm going to want to chat about what we read. And I don't want to be out of breath like this when we do it. So, no more. Wow. 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 Man, I am just going through it. Look at that. I started with a full gallon before this. Yes, Derpin Doge. All right. Whew. It's also really late at night for you, I understand. Okay. We're probably going to be here for another hour reading this chapter because this chapter is just fucking long. Chapter 8. I see. What are the... let me go to the table of contents real quick. So chapter 8, then we have 3 chapters and the extra chapter. So Day in the Floating Fortress. Chapter 10 is what I'm looking forward to, boys and girls. Turning Point Part 4, followed by an end and a beginning. Then we get the chapter Birth of a New Sword King. That's where we're going to be next week. Showdown with the Immortal Demon King. So next ought to be a bit easier. God damn it. All right. Yeah, well, I'm trying to be considerate, and I don't give a fuck what Rage says. I'm not trying to keep him up forever. All right. Chapter 8. Showdown with the Immortal Demon King. Immortal Demon King Toferetofe was incredibly famous. She was the daughter of one of the 5 great demon kings, Immortal Necrus Locrus, and first made a name for herself during the Second Great Human Demon War. Atofi was a paragon of the demon race. Although she lacked smarts, she possessed insane battle prowess and stamina. She was feared as a savage demon king. Her subordinates compensated for her intellectual shortcomings with their strengths. But when they had their supply route cut off during the war, they were all wiped out. She was then captured by the humans and sealed away. It wasn't until Laplace's war that Atofe revived. Laplace was the only one who gave her a new life, and she made a name for herself as a demon king, working beside him. When that conflict ended, she lost to North God Kalman and capitulated. According to one story, North God Kalman left a child with Demon King Atofe, and it was this heir that became North God Kalman II. Another suggested that North God Kalman imparted the wisdom of his sword technique to the Demon King. Yet another claimed that Demon King Atofe was the one who taught North God Kalman II all he knew. If any of these stories were to be believed, then Atofe was a battle-worn veteran who had directly passed on the techniques of the North God founder. On top of that, her body was also immortal. Fighting a woman like that would be a fool's errand. Sorry, I still haven't completely caught my breath. This is why I hate this shit. Like, yes, I need to do the exercises, but god damn. It takes too long for my asthmatic ass to catch my breath. Speaking of which... Yeah, but that's like this is a late night every fucking week, dude. Alright. Atofi stood before us with her retinue of black armored soldiers. Our escape route was sealed off. Based on her expression, she was raring to go,
and she had her blade out ready to fight. "Come, I'll take all 4 of you at once." Atofi made no move to initiate the battle, but merely raised her sword and scrutinized us. She meant it. With the power at her disposal, she was perfectly capable of overpowering us before we could react. But she didn't. "You won't catch me off guard this time," she warned. I pick up on things quickly. Fire blazed in her eyes as she glanced between Zenoba and me. This time, she was fully alert, ready for Zenoba's inhuman strength and my electrical magic. Our previous attacks had left no signs of damage. Zenoba had practically smashed her skull in, but her head was perfectly intact now. However, her vigilance indicated our efforts had been effective enough. "Go on! Try it again! This time I'll shake it off." She seemed confident. I had a feeling she would evade our attacks. The Water God style allowed a person to counter magical attacks. I didn't know all that much about the North God style, but then again, she was a Demon King. I was sure my magic wouldn't have much effect on her this time. That's the other thing that's really, really stupid. Rudius does not think himself all that special. He is insanely special. He'll learn that soon, but like right now, he's an absolute idiot, and he doesn't understand that he is unbelievably one of a kind. I activated my demon eye, but will seeing a second into the future really do me any good against an opponent like her? As I debated how to handle this, I decided that creating an opening was my best bet. But what do I do after that? And even if I do create an opening, will my magic work against her? Yes! If Zenoba could crush her face in, your magic would be fucking phenomenal. Even the most powerful stone cannon I could muster wasn't enough to fully kill Batty Gaddy. Plus, Atofi was prepared for my attack. If she defended, my magic wouldn't... "Rudius," Lindley suddenly whispered in my ear. "Let's at least sneak Cliff through so he can teleport out of here." I glanced over at Cliff. He was bravely staring Atofi down, but his legs were trembling. He would be useless in battle. If we send him off with the tea leaves, plants, and Memo, he should have enough to save Nanahoshi, Linalise continued. "Yeah, you have a point." She was right. This was our best option. We had to save Nanahoshi. That was the whole reason we'd come here. Nothing was more important than achieving our objective. Even so, I still wanted to make it home alive. No. Even if I'm defeated, I probably won't die. I just won't be able to see my family for at least a decade, and I sure don't want that. We could also call in reinforcements. I'm pretty sure Perugius has had some dealings with the Tofi in the past. Surely he would help us. Perugius and his 12 familiars. Now that was a thought. Maybe we could get him to back us up, considering how arrogantly he acted. Surely he had enough power to fight a Tofi. "All right," I said. "Let's do that. Think you can convince Cliff? I'll give it a shot." And Linnaeus slipped toward him. The 3 of us, Zenoba, Linnaeus, and me, could create an opening for Cliff to slip through and teleport back to the fortress. While he persuaded Perugius to come save us, we would have to hold our own against a Tofi, assuming Cliff succeeded. Perugius would then come to our rescue. But would that work? Could we really hold out that long? And could Cliff actually sway Perugius into helping? If Cliff took too much time, we might lose and be forced into a contract anyway. Still, if Cliff went back, at least Nanahoshi would be saved. That was the whole reason for our endeavor. But I also wanted to go home. Ah, crap. I'm just spinning my wheels at this point. Yes, exactly. You're overthinking things, and that's the problem. I took a breath and told myself, calm down. First, we needed to immobilize a Tofi for a short time. During that window, I would disperse the other knights with my magic so Cliff could escape. Depending on how things worked out, the rest of us might even be able to flee with him. All right, let's do it then. We might not be able to beat a Tofi, but we could absolutely beat her personal guard. Let's do it. Let's smash them to bits. Murder them all. If that's what it takes for me to get home, I'll do it. Okay. You can do this, Rudius. This time you're not going to be all talk and no action. Got it? Fear not, master. Even at the cost of my life, I will hold Demon Lord King Atofi in place. Zenoba had nerves of steel, and he was perfectly calm. That was reassuring. Why did he always manage to sound so heroic at these times? Was this some kind of stage play or something? If I were a woman, he'd sweep me right off my feet. Nearby, Cliff and Elenalise were whispering. The problem is, I don't know if I can outrun them. My legs aren't terribly fast, especially if I have to carry all of that with me. Rudius and I will stop any pursuers you might have, Elenalise promised, keeping her voice hushed. Just don't look back and don't give yourself time to think. Count your steps and run as fast as you can. Try not to trip. But I should join you guys in battle. We can't win. Not even with all four of us. We need you to call backup. That's your duty in this fight, and it's an extremely important one. Okay. Yeah, I understand. It was 30 strides to the teleportation circle from here. Not so close, but also not so far. If Cliff ran with everything he had, he would be able to make it. After a minute or two, Elenalise returned and said, Okay, I convinced him. I glanced at Cliff. He nodded, wearing the determined look of a man dedicated to fulfilling his duty and not that of a man running from battle. Elenalise had done well to tell him that his role was key part of the fight. She was ever the smooth talker. I wouldn't have been able to convince him so handily. Zenoba and I will distract Atofi and create an opening, said Elenalise. Rudius, you use that opportunity to disable the guards in the surrounding area. Got it. With that, our path was set. We turned to face Atofi. She still had her sword at the ready as she glared at us. Think you could beat me? There were no enemies behind her, but we were standing on a slope and the ground beneath us was unsteady. I worried whether Cliff could run past without falling. All we could do was believe in him. Zenoba, Miss Elenalise, I'll make the initial attack with my magic. Sounds good. I turned to Atofi and I lifted my staff. I was going to use my old handy-dandy stone cannon. Perhaps lightning was a better pick since it was king-tier magic with the best firepower when facing a single opponent. But at this distance, we might get caught in the spell. I wanted to avoid being a total idiot and wiping us out with my own magic. Whew! I exhaled before concentrating my mana into the staff. Atofi stood still. She already knew that I could use magic without reciting incantations, but she made no move to interrupt me. That worked out perfectly for me. My eye of foresight read her movements. Atofi will deflect my stone cannon with her sword. People said my stone cannon was an insanely high-level magic, but even that wasn't going to work against Atofi. Maybe electric would work better, but can I really use a spell she's most on guard for? Master, I swear I'll follow up whatever attack you unleash, so please have faith in me. Zenoba stared straight at me, eyes brimming with confidence. Yeah. It was reassuring to hear him say that. Clearly he had some kind of plan. In that case, I'd just follow his lead. All right. Then here we go. Yes, Master. And for those of you wondering why he doesn't use the same magic ability that he used against Orsted, I'm pretty sure he doesn't really remember doing it, I don't think, because he was so close to death. And secondly, he hasn't been practicing magic all that much, remember? He's actually gotten weaker because he hasn't practiced magic. He's like, I'm plenty strong enough. No, you're not. You keep encountering crazier and crazier shit. You need to get stronger so you can actually combat it. Yeah, thanks. I have earbuds for that. Yeah. We're not going out on the 4th. It's just not happening. It's ridiculous. But continuing back. I unleashed my stone cannon after packing all the mana I could into it. A high-pitched sound split the air as it raced toward Atofi. I see right through your attack! She left an afterimage behind as she reacted. Although calling it an afterimage was an exaggeration, she barely moved her arm, changing her sword's direction ever so slightly. In that instant, my stone cannon connected with her weapon, sending sparks everywhere. My attack was deflected, whipping past Atofi and slamming into a boulder on the slope. Huge plumes of sand shot up. I knew it. That spell was no good against her. Grrrah! Zenoba flung something at Atofi. Gwah! The thing he threw screamed as it launched toward Atofi. The latter happily readied her sword to cut it down. Your attacks are Huh? Just as Atofi was about to cut right through the projectile, she froze. A second later, it smacked her right in the face. Fwah! Woof! Kishirika was glued to Atofi's face. She had been riding on Zenoba's shoulder only moments earlier. Gross! You smell like shit! At least take a bath, you moron! Atofi howled. Excuse you, it's not like I wanted to— Yeah! Atofi didn't let Kishirika finish. She peeled the potent-smelling demon emperor off her face and hurled her into the air. Kishirika went tumbling, landing in a heap on the ground just outside our fighting radius. Disgusting! What were you thinking throwing something like that at— What? As Atofi yelled in exasperation, Zenoba clenched his fist and charged at her. Elena slipped behind him, hiding in a shadow. Crap! I could see where this was going. You slipped past my defenses! I like your spirit! Ha! Zenoba threw his fist. The strength behind it was enough to make my hair stand on end. His punch cut straight through the air as it closed in on her face. Atofi tried to deflect the blow with her gauntlet. Gah! But she failed. His fist slammed into her glove, causing her to stumble as her armor warped under the force of his blow. Ha! Zenoba followed up with another swing. He took a large step and drove the fist toward her torso. Weak! Atofi grunted. His attacks weren't enough to force her back. Even with the awkward stance she found herself in, she still managed to swing her massive sword. A loud crack echoed as her legs bent and she drove the full force of her sword into Zenoba's torso. Zenoba's face contorted in pain as he dropped to one knee. Even my stone cannon wasn't enough to make him flinch. Yet with a single attack, she had forced him to the ground. Atofi glared at him and snorted. You have an impressive body, but don't forget, there is no such thing as the perfect defense. My husband, Cal, was the one who— Ha! Midway through her speech, Elena popped out from behind Zenoba, using his back as a kickoff point. Her attack, backed by centrifugal force, sliced through the air as she connected with Atofi's bare neck. Her blade was deflected with a noisy clang. No skin would make that sound. Atofi must have been using battle aura to protect herself. I'm not finished yet! As soon as Elena realized that wouldn't work, she backed down. She brought her shield close as she redoubled her efforts. Thrusting with her weapon, invisible shockwaves surged in Atofi's direction. Humph! Atofi didn't even flinch. She only furrowed her brows in displeasure, as though some sand had gotten her eye. Your sword is too weak. See, this is how you do it. Atofi canted from her hips and swung her massive sword at Elena. The latter took a step back in an attempt to dodge, but Elena lifted her shield at the last second. In the next instant, a deep sound echoed and Elena went spinning through the air. She rolled across the boulder-strewn ground and leapt back to her feet, much like a cat. Fear shone in her eyes. Her attack had been ineffective. Atofi had created shockwaves merely by swinging her sword. If Elena hadn't blocked them with her shield, they might have sheared right through her. Your footwork is impressive, I'll give you that, said Atofi. If you train under me, you might— Grrrr! Zenoba leapt up, throwing his arms open as he charged at Atofi. Ah! He wrapped his arms around her from the front, binding her in place, then lifted her up until her feet no longer touched the ground. You bastard, have you no shame? Putting your arms around me like— Grrrr! Her arms were like— his arms were like a vice squeezing her. Black blood came crushing out of Atofi's mouth. Apparently, this kind of attack was effective. Well, she was still an immortal demon king. Whatever damage she sustained would surely be temporary. Master! Now! His words brought me back to reality. He had Atofi restrained. This was our chance. Cliff! Go now! Run! I poured all my mana into my staff. I would use an all-out attack on the area and knock out all the enemy soldiers. Okay! As Cliff started to run, the nearby knights snapped to attention and readied their swords. Sadly for them, it was already too late. Frost Nova! A chill surged from my staff. The ground crackled as it froze over, and icy fingers spread toward the knights surrounding us. Ugh! While confusion overtook them, my spell locked their feet in place. Our victory was assured. I had caught them all off guard. They had no opportunity to shake off my attack. Or so I thought. A voice sounded out. Raging flames, consume my body, burn in place! A wave of heat spilled from one man. This is why you don't say your attacks out loud, dumbass! It was more. Oh, no, a wave of heat spilled from one man, enveloping the others. That warmth began to counter my Frost Nova. The man who had cast the spell had steam pouring out of his arms. as he defrosted the ice. So it was more. The old knight captain had started his chant the moment I lifted my staff, allowing him to counter my spell only seconds later. See, you're a moron. You give away your shit too easily. I was shocked at the amount of magical energy he possessed, as well as how quickly he finished his incantation. I hadn't pulled my punches with that spell. No, but you'd been obvious. However, his magic only managed to free him and the 2 guards closest to him. The others were completely encapsulated in ice. There was still a great difference in our magical power, and I'd won that battle. And now, I've killed for the first time. I'm impressed at how much magical power you possess, being able to freeze all of us. Everyone, recite the incantation for burn in place. As you command, fire spirit who presides over all things between heaven and earth. As Moore shouted, the other soldiers began to chant the spell from within the ice they were trapped. They're not dead. None of them died. It had been the armor. Perhaps it gave them natural resistance to water magic. Well, crap. See, once again, you underestimate your opponent. You're so used to fighting the weak shit that you don't think, oh crap, there might be a lot of strong people out there. You have a little bit of humility, but you don't capitalize on it. You need to keep stepping your shit up. Grrr! Atofi snarled as Cliff slipped past her. More! Don't let him get away! Understood! At Atofi's command, Moore sprang into action. A few seconds later, the 2 other knights closest to him managed to defrost their icy prisons and rush after him. As if I'd let you get past! And Linalise darted out in front of the 2, cutting off their path. Rudius, you take him! Moore chased after Cliff without a single glance backward. See, all this time, you should have been moving. You're too much thinky think and not enough move. Anyway. He moved quickly for a man in armor. Meanwhile, Cliff was shouldering a huge load. There were only about 7 steps between them. I turned my staff toward Moore. Stone cannon! Why are you saying words? Moore will use earth wall to try to block my stone cannon. No problem. I could still do this. I poured all the mana I could into my staff and unleashed my spell. Earth's go! As Moore continued running, he threw up his hand toward me as he tried to recite his incantation, but my stone cannon blasted right through his arm like some kind of laser. His appendage, along with the armor that covered it, went spinning through the air. The loss of that limb did cause him to stumble, but he didn't give up his pursuit. Bestow upon me thy power, water spirits! Deep mist! Moore recited another spell, creating a mist that wrapped around him. He intended to use that as a smokescreen to dodge my stone cannon, apparently. Still, he can pull off those incantations pretty quickly. He's learned to reduce his chance considerably, much like Roxy. Wind blast! The gust I unleashed dispersed the mist, but Moore remained undeterred. He showed no signs of losing his focus as he pursued Cliff. Perhaps the black armor of his also provided resistance against wind spells, too. Who gives a shit about that? Fucking do something! Now what? There was only a short distance separating him from Cliff. I didn't have many more chances. You have so many fucking chances. You're just a moron. This is my problem. Like, here's the thing. My problem with Rudius does not extend to Anya. Anya has this insane power, but she's a moron. And that's what makes it cute. You know? Rudius has intelligence and has all this power, but he doesn't use it right. And he would have if he actually paid attention and actually learned to train. No, he stopped training because he figured this was good enough and this is the price of it. As I was racking my brain for ideas, my eye of foresight told me what was going to happen next. Moore is going to start chanting a spell as he continues running after Cliff. What good is knowing the future if you won't do much about it? Spirits of the barren land, answer my call and deliver unto me disturb magic. I'd practiced this with Sylphie innumerable times. The magic shot straight forward toward Moore and interrupted the spell he'd been trying to cast. Impossible! Disturb magic? Surprised, Moore dropped his gaze to his hand. Even so, he kept running. There were only 5 steps between him and Cliff now. Quagmire! And in quick succession, I launched another spell at him with my left hand in order to cut off his path. Using the magic I was most accustomed to was a good call. My opponent might be a veteran, but the battle skills I had accumulated over the years still worked against them. Plus, I had gone through simulations such as this when I was practicing. Then why are you so slow to react? That's just what I'm saying. Grrr. The ground between Cliff and Moore turned swamp-like. The mud had the consistency of glue clinging to Moore's feet, although it seemed that would be enough to stop him. Unknown God, answer my call and raise the earth up toward the heavens. Earthlance! Moore launched a spell at his feet. A block of land rose up, and he used it to kick off. He used it as a kickoff point to fly over my quagmire. Once again, you just assume everything's gone your way, and you stopped feeding into your foresight. He wouldn't stop. He just kept moving. Everything I threw at him, he countered or resisted. So these are the abilities of a veteran mage. Rudius, help Cliff! Hurry! Elenelise called from behind me. I know! I shot her a brief glance. She was locked in battle with the soldiers that had been standing next to Moore. It was 2 against 1. She wasn't their target, but it was all Elenelise could do to keep them from proceeding. Release me, damn it! Right now! Don't you have any shame as a man? Stop clinging to me! Let's at least trade fists! Atofe roared. Zenoba replied, Even if you kill me, I won't let you go! Atofe had already headbutted him. He kept a vice grip on her even as blood poured from his forehead. Meanwhile, the other knights were slowly defrosting themselves. Steam was filling the area. What could I do? What could I do to throw Moore off his pursuit? He was strong, and he had way more experience in battling with magic. Normal spells hadn't worked against him. Should I launch something more powerful at him? No, even if a powerful spell stopped Moore, it would be pointless if Cliff got caught in the blast. Plus, Moore was insanely good at responding to whatever I threw at him, and he had that stupid armor too. That was when I realized that the ground beneath me was wet, a result of the frost nova I had used moments ago. The soldiers had used burn in place to melt the ice I'd made, and now the ground was puddled with it. Moore was no exception, having been the first to defrost himself. Of course, Elenelise and I also had water at our feet. If Atofe had never seen that type of magic before, then surely Moore hadn't either. No matter how experienced he was, he wouldn't be able to counter a spell he had never seen before. Although if I used it, all of us, Elenelise, Zenoba, and myself included, would get hit by it. Only Cliff would remain unscathed. He was outside my spell's radius. He would be fine. I made my choice in that instant, no hesitation. Electric! I poured enough mana into the spell to stun everyone without killing them. Electricity shot from my hand. It cracked through the air as it enveloped the area before striking the ground. It conducted through the water and hit everyone in the vicinity. And this is where we're at on that. Yep. Not too far left. We're at 70%, so 4% to go. Gah! Smoke rose from the blackened, armored knights as they collapsed. Everyone was caught in the shock, including myself, Zenoba, Atofe, and the other soldiers. Moore and myself. Gah! It went right through my body, shooting down my spine and joints. Every part of me seemed to bend in the wrong direction. I hadn't used enough mana to kill, so I knew I'd make it out of this alive, but that didn't stop the darkness from swallowing my vision as I lost consciousness. When I came to, I was sprawled on the ground. I remembered fainting, but it hadn't lasted more than 2 seconds. My entire body was paralyzed. At least I had my vision. What happened to Cliff? I lifted my head. Moore was on his knees, smoke rising from the cracks in his armor. He had one hand stretched toward Cliff, and I could faintly hear him mumbling what I assumed was an incantation. I need to use disturbed magic. No, I won't make it in time. I concentrated my mana into my left arm. Even if my right one was numb from the shock, my prosthetic hand could still move. I unfurled my fingers and launched a spell from behind. Wind bind, Moore grunted. Arm absorb. The air whip which Moore conjured disappeared in an instant. What? Moore's head jerked in my direction. I could see his expression through his helmet, but I couldn't see his expression through his helmet, but his surprise was clear. Cliff never glanced back. He was only 3 steps from the magic circle. No one could catch him. Thanks to my magic, they couldn't even try if they wanted. My spell had paralyzed Atofe as well. Her eyes were wide open, staring me down like a tiger. Bastard! You actually got us! That was some weird magic you used. I remained silent. Still, something for me to look forward to. I can't wait for you to be my subordinate. I've been wanting a mage like you. I'll take good care of you, I promise. She grinned maniacally at her. I stared back at her, uncowed. Being an immortal demon, I was sure she would recover quicker than me. There would be no more escape. We couldn't resist her. Zenoba was out cold. Although he still had his arms wrapped around Atofi, they looked ready to give way at any moment. Given his low pain tolerance, he would probably be unconscious for a while. This was the end. I looked at Elenise. Her whole body was trembling as she tried to get to her feet. She had probably taken the same amount of damage as me, but she wasn't going to let that stop her. She hadn't given up yet. Once you give up, it's all over. The white-haired coach in Slam Dunk said that too. With a little effort, I could do the same. Come on, let's do it. Let's go home. I want to go back. I have to. And when I did get home, maybe I'd have a little sexy time with Sylphie. And Roxy too, of course. I also wanted to hug little Lucy. Plus, I promised to teach Norn swordsmanship and magic. I was looking forward to eating Aisha's rice. Lilia had a huge burden on her shoulders, looking after my mother. Surely Zenith would get her memory back eventually, though. When she did, we could go visit Father's grave together. Yeah, that's right. We'll keep smiling together, just like we always have. My life in this world was so insanely enjoyable, I had to protect it. I had to. Okay, I can do this. Move, Rudius. I don't care if it's just your arm. You can at least use magic. What about my staff? Where did it go? I need that to use my spells. Ah, there it is. As it turned out, I'd been lying on top of it. Sorry about that, Aquahartia. I'm sure I must have been heavy. Anyway, I could do this. I just had to hold out until help came. That was all. There was no need to win. Please, Master Cliff. I know you probably hate Perugius' guts, but I beg of you, please persuade him. I don't care if you can't do it immediately, but if you could at least send someone within the year, that would be awesome. What? Elenise let out a strangled gasp. My head jerked up and I followed her gaze. Cliff had just arrived at the entrance to the underground ruins, where he ran into one of the black armored soldiers. No way. One of them had been inside there this whole time. Ah, why hadn't I considered that possibility? That gap was obvious enough. No matter how stupid Atofi was, of course she would investigate the ruins. A darkness spread within me. The emotion that overcame me was one of I was very familiar with. Despair. It made me want to scream, to slump over in exhaustion. Never again would I see Sylphie or Roxy. Instead, I would have to train with that idiot of a Demon King until the day I died. As I resigned myself to that fate, all the strength in my body left me. At that moment, a surprised voice cried out, "What?" It wasn't me. It wasn't a Elenise or a Zenoba. It wasn't more either. It was Atofi. She was the one gasping as she stared in Cliff's direction. Ah, Lady Atofi. The armored knight pushed past Cliff, hobbling onto the slope. Something about him was strange. The magic circle in there. It leads to Peru. In the next instant, something cleaved horizontally through his body. He was split in two. The glowing individual who appeared behind him had silver hair, small golden pupils, and white clothing covered in specks of blood. Immortal Demon King Atofi Ratofi, The man who appeared at the entrance in the ruins spoke fluent demon tongue. I would never have expected you to be here, though I did consider something like this might happen when I connected my teleportation circle to the one here by Rikarisu. A number of people tailed him. Two that I recognized were Aramanfi the Bright and Sivaril of the Void. I had yet to learn the names of the others, but there were 6 of them in total. Your filthy soldiers have sullied my fortress with their blood. Ah, that makes sense. Atofi made it here before we did. She must have found the entrance to the ruins and ordered her soldiers to go in and search. Those who found the teleportation circle would have no doubt entered to see what was on the other side. Thus, demons entered Perugius' floating fortress. Perugius! Atofi howled. The armored Dragon King himself stood before us. The moment Atofi spotted Perugius, the atmosphere around her changed. The hostility that oozed from her was like nothing we had seen before. The way she bared her fangs and glowered almost made me wonder if he'd murder her parents or something. "Perugius, you bastard!" Although her body was still numb from the shock, Atofi pulled herself up and shoved Zenoba away. His body fell completely limp. She ignored him as she kept her gaze trained on Perugius. Her wings began beating rapidly as she focused her strength into her legs and tried to launch herself forward, but her knees gave out from under her. Perugius stared back, lips cracked with a delighted smile. "Oh, this is quite the unpleasant surprise, Atofe Ratofe. Did you let your guard down again? That does seem to be something you immortal demon tribe is prone to." "So those people, they were your minions, huh? This underhanded trick of yours. Was it all so you could kill me? What happened to that oath you made to Cal?" Perugius chuckled as he looked down his nose at her. Overcome with anger, Atofi screamed at him. Moore tried to make his way over to her, feet unsteady, but he wasn't able to reach her. The only ones who were unscathed from my spell were Perugius and his familiars, as well as Cliff. The way Perugius regarded Atofi was like a tiger fixed on its favorite prey. "Don't misunderstand," he said. "These people wanted to save their friend, so they requested my help. That is all." "Don't you dare lie to me!" "Gah!" "I'll keep the promise I made to Cal. He was my best friend." "You two may have been friends, but I still hate your guts!" After a long pause, Perugius replied, "I also detest people like you. You're a fool who won't listen to reason." He lifted both arms, palms raised up. Atofi's face turned pale. No, you wouldn't." He ignored her protest and began chanting. "This dragon lives only to serve. His claws are so long and sharp, he can never clench his hand." I felt like I had heard this somewhere before. "When rage consumes him, he cannot close his fist. Although his claws may break and his fangs fall out, you shall soon realize what emotion consumes this faithful dragon as he abandons his devotion." Perugius bit out each word, one by one. As he did, nearby mana coalesced around him. "O dragon general, thou who was the third to die, whose eyes were the sharpest, whose body was covered in whitest scales, I, armored dragon king Perugius, summon thee." By the time I realized what was happening, Atofi was surrounded by two gates blocking her off from the rest of us. Both had minutely detailed dragons carved into them and were very ornate. One was silver while the other was gold. They came rising out of the ground as Perugius continued his incantation. "Open, rear worm gate, beckon forth, front worm gate." As he commanded, they burst open. Something came pouring out of the right one and filtered into the left. It wasn't wind, it was something that couldn't be seen with the naked eye, something I knew well. Mana. He summoned those gates to absorb mana. My own magical power was being sucked out of me. It wasn't the same experience I had with Orsted. The drain was faster this time, more intense as it sapped my stamina. "No! Lady Atofi! Please run!" Moore, who had been crawling towards us, collapsed immediately. Atofi's legs were still trembling violently under her as she pinned Perugius with a glare. "Perugius!" Her body looked smaller than it had before. Perhaps those gates were absorbing the battle aura she wrapped around her. "Do you seriously intend to break your oath?" "I won't break it. However, this is an exceedingly rare opportunity that I cannot afford to pass up." Perugius lifted his right hand. It had turned white, radiating with light so bright that it bathed the entire area. "Armored dragon strike, first slash." He dropped his hand. All the light pierced straight through Atofi. "I won't forget this. Perugius!" Her entire body froze in place. Time seemed to lag for a second. Then she was hurled back through the air. Her body split in half as she went tumbling out of view. "It's not as if that will kill you anyway," Perugius muttered to himself, having lost interest. He turned on his heel to leave. "Sivaril, collect the other 4 and tend to their wounds. And what of the other soldiers?" "Leave them." "I see the demon world's great emperor Kishirika is among them as well." In the corner of my vision, Kishirika was toppled on the ground. The moment Sivaril mentioned her, she twitched in place. Apparently she'd been hit with my electric attack as well. Sorry about that. Leave her as well. As you command. Apparently he was going to overlook Kishirika. Thank goodness. Whew! As Sivaril and the others approached, I breathed a sigh of relief. We're saved. After that, Perugia's familiars helped us back to the teleportation circle. All of us had to use their shoulders for support as we walked, except for Cliff, of course. He spoke to Kishirika while the familiars tended to us. By the time I looked in their direction, Kishirika was cackling to herself as she disappeared into the distance, free again. The next time we saw her, I hoped we would have an easier time finding her, but that wasn't really important right now. After we had all teleported back to the fortress, Sivaril severed the connection between their circle and the one near Rikarisu. There was no longer a path back to the demon continent. We were guided to the sick bay for treatment for electrocution. Cliff looked after us. He actually volunteered himself. I'd never seen burns like this before, he muttered as he used his magic to heal us. While our wounds weren't life-threatening, the burns had penetrated deeply enough to permanently damage our bodies if we didn't receive treatment. I felt guilty for wounding Alenalius and Zenoba that badly, but if I hadn't, we wouldn't have disabled that immortal demon king. Cliff was particularly careful as he healed Alenalius' wounds. He was probably worried about residual scarring. For her part, Alenalius found his concern so endearing that as soon as he was finished treating her, she carried him off somewhere. Zenoba remained unconscious even after being healed. He really saved my skin back there. No amount of gratitude could fully repay him for that. As priceless as friendship was, I had to thank him for all he did. I would be sure to convey my appreciation when he woke up. Once I was fully healed and could move again, I went to see Sylphie. She was lying in bed reading a book when I entered. She looked up and tilted her head. What's wrong? Without answering, I silently slid into bed and wrapped my arms around her. She let out a cry of surprise, which stabbed me in the heart. It felt like rejection. Although hurt by that, I still hugged her tightly. Atofi's laughter still lingered in my ears, as did the despair I'd felt when my entire body was so numb I couldn't move. I knew I wasn't going to die in that fight. Atofi was holding back, and even her knights hadn't come to us with their full power. The magic Moore used wasn't dangerous enough to kill either, but that hadn't made it any less terrifying. If Perugius hadn't come when he did, Atofi would have captured us and made us sign her contract. I would never get the chance to hold Sylphie in my arms like this again. Nor could I see Lucy as she grew up. Or Roxy, or Norn, or Aisha. None of them. That thought alone shook me to my core, enough that my entire body trembled with fear. There was nothing more precious than the warmth I held in my arms right now. Suddenly, a hand brushed over my hair. Sylphie was stroking my head, combing her soft, dainty, warm fingers through my hair. She happily returned my embrace. She didn't even ask for an explanation. She simply hugged me back. That was enough for me. With my arms wrapped around her, I fell asleep, relieved. And that's Chapter 8, everybody! Not magic, science! Humility is just a lack of something. Oh, okay. No, you didn't. Liar. All right. So, yeah, dude. That's crazy stuff. Oh, that reminds me. Hey, guys, 1 second. I'm opening up Windows. Or not Windows. I'm opening up Google Drive, which I know. Give me a second. I forgot to make a, let's see. Switch account. I have to switch to the Fat Dog Light Novels. And then I'm going to go from there to the YouTube studio. Everything should be good now. Wait, is season 3 of... No, season 3 of Iruma-kun shouldn't be. Okay, none. Okay, so I can now move this to public and publish. Public and publish. And then public and publish. Okay, so everything that we recorded from last week, the beginning of Volume 14 and slime stuff is now up and live on the light novel channel. So make sure to give that a look. And of course, guys, most importantly, if you would go if you would go and freaking put down the times when the readings begin on the videos, I would really, really greatly appreciate that for all of you on YouTube who are watching along. So, yeah. All right. That was practice my ass. All right. That was all of it. That's basically the end of all this stuff, man. It's pretty crazy. I turned on Google Drive and now I'm at 100% CPU. Oh no, okay, not 100% CPU, but 88% memory. So, yeah, guys. So yeah, that's I it's crazy how much the the stuff that's going on right here with this particular fight is. I remember reading this and just rolling my eyes a lot at Rudius. I was like, dude, you had so many more options you probably could have used, but you just weren't doing your due diligence, and that's very dumb. Anyway, yeah, it's one of those things, man. I'm not. I hurt hearing that. It hurt hearing that stuff, right? It's like, dude, you're so much better than this. Why are you acting like that? You know. So yeah, a little bit of that. Let's see. And requests. All requests are managed. There we go. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What did you guys think about this? Of course, let me know on YouTube. And for those of you on Twitch, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts on this are as well. But, yeah, man, the good stuff, the stuff I'm really looking forward to is what we'll be reading next week. Not the first chapter, but the second chapter. When we get to Turning Point Part 4, that's when shit goes down. There's a lot of stuff that's coming up in the next couple of volumes that kind of changes everything. Like how you view so much stuff that there's so much stuff that's happening that you are viewing in a particular light that is going to completely change how you see things. I'm not even joking on this. Like 100%. Your view of the world, what you think about the world, Rudius, his family, the situation so far, Orsted, all the demon kings, the man god, all this stuff is going to change. Like, if you thought that Turning Point 1 was a crazy event, and that was like, of course, the teleportation incident, or Turning Point 2, which was Orsted killing Rudius and then bringing him back to life, was ridiculous, and that changed the paradigm. Or 3, which was sending him to Begarit and then his dad dying and dealing with the aftermath of that and him taking Roxy as a wife. If you thought those were game changers, they are nothing compared to 4. 4 is going to change the way you... All right. I feel like what has happened so far is we built up this world to the point that we have confidence and understanding about how this world works. And Turning Point 4 is going to show you that you knew nothing. Nothing whatsoever. And the volumes that follow after just compound on that. It's great. I love it. I can't wait. And we've got 2 weeks until volume 18 comes out. What the hell, dude? Volume 17 just came out. Now we got 2 weeks till 18 comes out digitally. If you're waiting on the physical copy, it's coming in September. I'm sorry. You're going to be waiting 2 months. I can't go into it too much. You guys will just have to wait till next week. But I'm really loving how interested you guys are in this. And guys, if you like more Mushoku Tensei content, well, we've got more for you. If you have not gone onto our Patreon, and yes, I am plugging this, our Patreon, which by the way, if you're on YouTube, link down below, our Patreon, we are doing reactions now. Moon, who auditioned for our Slime Abridged, never saw Slime, and then I made him watch all the Slime, and then it was like, we were talking on the last Anime Church, which, by the way, come by and hang out with us for that. That will be at 2 p.m. Central Time on Sundays. We get dressed up for that and all sorts of shit. Oh, that's right. I have to apply Anime Church as a panel. Anyway, that having been said, we do a bunch of like news and stuff like that. We're going to talk about a lot of it. But Moon is watching Mushoku Tensei. He is watching 2 episodes at a time, and we're also going to be recording his review of all of Slime. So now that he sat down, watched all of season 1 and 2, we're going to sit down, talk about Slime. And I finally sat down this week and watched all of Slime Diaries. It was exactly what I thought it was. I enjoyed it, but like I knew that by skipping it, I wasn't really missing out on a lot. And to be honest, here's my thing. I think they probably should have done Slime Diaries before they showed the first half of season 2. And I did make mention of this to Moon. I'm like, I'm glad that I didn't ask you to watch Slime Diaries before. Because if you'd watched Slime Diaries before the first half of season 1, or the first half of season 2, it would have made every death that happened in the city of Rimuru and the attack on that city by those assholes. Like, you thought you hated them now. Imagine if you had watched that slice of life, the 12 episodes of that adorable, cute slice of life series where you'd met so many more individuals and see how they worked and how the city ran and operated. You had like this like loving connection to all that, only for to have season 2 come in and for that shit to go down. You thought you were pissed before. So here is my official order as far as new people coming into Slime. If you're going to get new people into Slime, have them watch season 1, Slime Diaries, then season 2. You'll thank me later when you see their reaction or hear them yelling about stuff. It's going to be far more intense than ours were. All right. But yeah, he's checking out Mushoku Tensei episodes 1 and his reaction to episode 1 and 2 are up on the channel. We will be, now I am saying he's going to be watching 3 and 4 tomorrow with me after we do our Slime review. And I'm going to be joining him on the Discord call to talk with him about it. And also to kind of watch along with him and like pause at moments and like make it more of a reaction thing instead of just kind of, a lot of it was mostly just him watching the show. So it's his very first reaction. He's not used to this. He's not used to being talkative. So I'm probably going to join him for Mushoku Tensei since it is more of a serious kind of series. But I also want him to have like conversations about stuff. And I want him to be talking to the audience and asking you guys questions. Now, Spider, thank you for your comment on the Patreon. We did see it. I told him that if he wanted to leave a reply, he can, because that's part of it, is like him replying. But yeah, we'll be recording more stuff tomorrow after Anime Church. So come by for Anime Church. We're going to record a Slime review, and then over the next couple of days, we're going to do reactions to Mushoku Tensei. So we might have a bunch of Mushoku Tensei reactions coming your way. Now, we're going to do 2 at a time per reaction episode, or we may do them 1 at a time. It just depends on how long we have a chat after each episode. So it may just be we drop 1 episode at a time, but we're watching 2 episodes. It's just our after chat is a bit long. Things like that. But yeah, we're just getting into the swing of it. This is going to be patron only. It will not be going up on YouTube. So if you want to watch these, they come out immediately. Does not matter what tier you are. You're a $1 tier, you get the reactions. They are full uncut reactions. And yeah, it's only on our Patreon. Once again, link down below. That having been said though, guys, thank you so much for coming by and checking out these light novel readings. So excited to get to next week and check out what's going on with with what's going on in 14. There's some, or no, we're on 14. Get with 15, because there's some good shit that drops in 15. 14's where the shit really hits the fan, and I'm really excited for it. But that having been said, guys, thank you so much. I will see you again tomorrow for Anime Church. and Monday for the next Slime Light novel. Y'all take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!